set to put the Minnesota Timberwolves on the clock at number 1. PJ Carlesimo, LaFonso Ellis, Doris Burke. I'm Mark Kestisher. Before we continue, let's pause 10 seconds for station identification. You're listening to the NBA Draft on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. Seven years ago, it was the Giannis draft. Join Adrian Wojnarowski for a special 3-part podcast with exclusive access to the reigning 2-time MVP, plus extensive interviews with then Bucks GM John Hammond and Hawks GM Danny Ferry. Download and subscribe to the Woj Pod wherever you listen to podcasts. So we will be sending it to the commissioner, Adam Silver, any moment now to get this 2020 NBA draft underway. He'll put the Minnesota Timberwolves on the clock. It'll also be the first time we'll have had a chance to hear him in large part since the end of the championship in Orlando at Disney with the Los Angeles Lakers knocking off the Miami Heat. And this is different than any draft we have ever done. Usually we are in Brooklyn at Barclays Center. Before that, we were in Newark at the Prudential Center, Madison Square Garden before that. But remarkably, they've built a podium and a set that looks very similar as we send it to Adam Silver.
NBA draft. While we wish we could be in an arena hosting the top picks, their families and friends, and thousands of fans, we are grateful to ESPN for still finding a way to make this one of the most memorable nights on the NBA calendar. The draft marks a new beginning for our teams, and it's a new chapter for the next generation of players in search of their NBA dreams. This draft, however, is anything but ordinary. Seasons cut short, no NCAA tournament or NBA Summer League, not even pickup games in most places. And with opening night fast approaching and less time to prepare, this class of rookies will be challenged more than ever before. But they are ready. Like so many organizations fighting their way through the pandemic, we are trying to adapt to a new normal. At the same time, we recognize that virtually every decision comes with enormous uncertainty. By opening our season on Christmas week, we not only hope to find a way to operate safely and responsibly, but to inspire resilience and optimism in others who are also struggling through these difficult times. And while tonight we welcome the best of the best from around the world, we also celebrate a game whose universal values have been passed down from generation to generation. Values like respect, equality, tolerance, and fairness. That's why basketball is a game for everyone, and one whose values we can all share. So let's get started with this terrific group of young men who are moments away from hearing their names called. The first pick in the 2020 NBA Draft belongs to the Minnesota Timberwolves, who have 5 minutes to make their selection.
So the Minnesota Timberwolves are placed on the clock. Mark Kestisher alongside with Doris Burke, PJ Carlesimo, LaFonso Ellis, Kevin Winter with us as well. First round will be 5 minutes between picks. Second round will be 2 minutes between picks. Minnesota, Golden State, Charlotte, the top three. Anthony Edwards, James Wiseman, and LaMelo Ball in some order expected to be in that top three. But guys, there are a lot of interesting players, some good talent. It may not be superstar talent, could turn out to be, but some guys that will be rotation players and difference makers. And Doris, I'll start with you. Who's a sleeper in this draft class?
Well, I'm not going to go anybody that's projected top five. I don't know if you term this player a sleeper, but Cole Anthony, of course, the son of Greg Anthony, who had an 11-year NBA career, was projected before he was a freshman at North Carolina as a top 3 pick. Now, the team obviously did not perform like a typical North Carolina team, but he puts 34 on and 11 on the Fighting Irish, LaFonso, first game out. Everybody gets excited. You know, obviously, listen, you know, the assist-to-turnover ratio, concerning. The field goal percentage is not good, but there was a ton of weight on his shoulders. So I'm just really curious how, you know, these organizations view a player like Cole Anthony, because his numbers, 18 points, almost 6 boards and 4 assists. Obviously, his decision-making could have been better, but he's maybe not a sleeper, but somebody I'm really curious to see where he goes.
PJ, what direction are you going in with sleeper?
Tyler Bay. Colorado. It's fashionable to go with the freshman. He's not a Frost junior. He'll be 23 when they get into the second half of the year. Exceptional defensive player, shot over 40% from the three. Not a lot of them, but he did make them when he shot them. 9 boards. He led the Pac-12 in rebounding. Got on the offensive glass. I think he's got a ceiling that even though he's older, he's still improving. Not going to surprise me if he turns out to be really special.
I knew you'd go Pac-12. And Defensive Player of the Year last year in the conference, right? Matisse Thybulle, year before, turned out to be somewhat of an impact player with the Sixers in his rookie year. Fonzo, who do you like as a sleeper?
I like Jahmias Ramsey, who ended up being the Big 12 Freshman of the Year. This kid's terrific with the basketball in his hands. He's got deep range, can knock it down from 3, loves pick-and-roll situations, makes the right reads coming out of it. And if the lane opens up and a big comes over to challenge, he loves trying to highlight dunk over the top. He's really good defensively. He's a little bit undisciplined on that side where he can go for shot fakes and that kind of thing. But in terms of lateral foot speed, the ability to be able to challenge a shot in front of him, and actually give weak side help for challenge because of his explosive athletic ability. I really like Jahmias Ramsey out of Texas Tech.
Excellent. 3 good sleepers there. Before we get to our safest picks, the NBA Draft on ESPN Radio is brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts, your professional parts people. The Timberwolves are on the clock. Doris, we'll start with you. Who do you think's the safest pick here in this draft tonight?
Yeah, Kesty, the way I viewed this is who could have a 10-year career unequivocally and is going to be solid no matter what. So I went with Tyrese Halliburton out of Iowa State. 42% three-point shooter, excellent free throw shooter. His assist-to-turnover ratio is very much like another Iowa State person, Monte Morris, who, of course, has been tremendous for Denver. So Tyrese Halliburton, his maturity really strikes me as somebody who's super safe.
PJ?
Bay to Bay, Kesty. Tyler Bay to Sadiq Bay. He's ready to play right now. He's a man. He can shoot the ball. He's an excellent defender. Played in a great conference. Extremely well coached.
And Fonz?
He stole one from me there with Sadiq Bey, so I'll go a different route and go with Aaron Nesmith. His ability to be able to get out, play fast in the lane, can finish. An area that's growing for him is the ability to be able to find guys once he's double-teamed or the defense rotates over to help.
Yeah, maybe one of the best shooters in the draft, and we saw a couple of young shooters on the Miami Heat last year. Duncan Robinson, one of them in his second year as they won the Eastern Conference and went on to the NBA Championship Series where they lost to the Lakers. So the Minnesota Timberwolves are on the clock. Mark Kestisher, PJ Carlesimo, LaFonso Ellis, Doris Burke with you. We will wait on the commissioner. The Minnesota Timberwolves have kept this very close to the vest as far as what they were going to do with this pick. Doris, I wasn't sure if they would trade down. I think we could have thought that for a lot of teams here, but unless we get any word that there's going to be a trade from this point on, and Woj is usually on top of all that stuff. 15 seconds left till they're on the clock. Looks like they're keeping the pick.
And I think they're going to go Anthony Edwards. I liked what Gerson Rosas said. He said it took on immense responsibility when it became the number 1 pick and really prepared us to look at it from different perspectives. But this should be good. If it's not Anthony Edwards, it makes you think maybe there's something happening there.
We'll get a sense of it coming up in just a little bit. Obviously, Karl Anthony Towns was the selection a number of years ago. I think it was 2015 when the last time they had the number 1 overall pick. They made the acquisition for D'Angelo Russell. And so, PJ, that's sort of where we're looking to see where are they going to go for a certain player that fits those two guys particularly, or go for who they feel is the best player in the draft. That's usually what you're up against here in round 1.
I don't think there's anybody so good that you go for the best player in the draft. I think you got to fit him in on your team, especially when you take away that one playoff opportunity. They need a win now.
There you go. So the pick is in. Now we're just waiting on the announcement here for the Minnesota Timberwolves, who have their young head coach, Ryan Saunders, general manager, Scott Layden. The Timberwolves have missed the postseason 15 of the last 16 years. They won the lottery, and here comes the commissioner, Adam Silver, for our first selection.
With the first pick in the 2020 NBA Draft, the Minnesota Timberwolves select Anthony Edwards from the University of Georgia.
Mike Schmidt's player profile. Edwards is the draft's most effortless scorer at 6'5", 230 pounds with a 6'10" wingspan. He's a bulldog to the rim, but can stop on a dime and pull up from anywhere on the floor. He needs to improve his decision-making, his defensive motor, and prove himself as a winner, but in terms of scoring the ball, he's one of one in this draft.
Oh, that voice you're going to hear throughout the night, Mike Schmitz, our outstanding draft evaluator, and so it is Anthony Edwards going number 1 overall to the Minnesota Timberwolves, the freshman from Georgia, and Fonz, that is now the 11th straight draft. A freshman was selected number 1 overall. What are the Timberwolves getting, Fonz?
They're getting an elite athlete and an explosive guy in the open floor. He's got a solid bag of skills, can really set his guy up, get to the rim, has soft touch, left and right hand around the rim, can create his own shots. He makes and takes tough shots, competes on the defensive end, a guy who could be a really good two-way guy for the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Yeah, absolutely could be. And Doris, as you look at Minnesota and all those things we discussed before their pick, how do you see him potentially fitting in now with what they already have out there?
Well, as much as we talk about this guy's ability as a scorer, and it's obviously proven, and the fact that, as his coach said, he's got no limits in terms of how much better he can get, I think he's got to help them at defensive end.
Anthony Edwards going number 1, and the Golden State Warriors, we will find out momentarily who they select. Will it be James Wiseman? They remain on the clock. Adam Silver, of course, is here at our ESPN headquarters in Bristol, Connecticut. The first draft that is completely virtual. The commissioner, the deputy commissioner, will take over in the second round, and 19 of the top draftees right now are all at their homes or in, looking right now at my monitor here, some are at home, some look like they have some larger halls as well with family and friends standing by. There's television cameras in each. We are expecting to hear from the draft picks shortly after they are taken. Usually when we are in the arena, there's an interview that takes place with ESPN television, and then they work their way down certain media until they end up with us, and then we'll get a chance to visit with the draft picks along the way. So we are waiting for this Golden State pick. The pick is in, now just waiting on the commissioner for that pick, and he should be with us in just a moment as the Minnesota Timberwolves went 1 to Edwards, and we're all anticipating the potential of James Wiseman going to Golden State and if they will take that selection or not. And LaFonso.
Adrian Wojnarowski, of course, the Woj Bombs, he's saying about a couple of minutes ago that they are targeting James Wiseman and, in fact, has already tipped out the number 3 pick. Oh. So if you're following Woj online.
that has always been. I remember last year when we were in Brooklyn, it was the first time Woj was in my vision from where we were sitting, and he might have been 15 feet away, and I saw him pounding on the keyboard, and I'm like, I'm going to be reporting on whatever that man is typing within seconds. And so tonight's the night to have Woj on your Twitter. Why they're holding up at this point and not making that announcement remains to be seen or heard, but we are waiting for the commissioner to emerge not too far away from us here at the studios at ESPN with the number 2 pick overall. And obviously it'll be interesting to see what the news is with Klay Thompson, and hopefully it's not as bad an injury as we're hearing. But, PJ, everyone I talked to and everyone who has communicated with me, nobody's had really a good word to say, but all of it is unfounded. Now we have the commission waiting on the number 2 pick.
2020 NBA Draft. The Golden State Warriors select James Wiseman from the University of Memphis.
Mike Schmitz Player Profile.
Wiseman is a physical specimen at close to 7'1" with a 7'5" wingspan and massive 9'6" standing reach, making him a lob threat offensively and giving him potential as a defensive anchor on the other end of the floor. He also shows skill potential as a ball handler and shooter, but is a blank canvas and needs to put it all together to have an impact at the NBA level.
There we go. Indeed, James Wiseman is the selection out of Memphis. He's got a Warriors hat on. He just let out a big exhale as he goes number 2. And LaFonso, we only got to see him for 69 minutes of action. But for all the things that Mike Schmitz just discussed, I mean, he has so much upside and already showed us a little bit of that in those 3 games with the Tigers.
Indeed, electrifying athlete for his size. Nice touch around the rim. He's got a good stroke with that left hand to 18 feet. Excellent floor runner, and in pick and rolls, he's terrific because he sets good screens and he's able to dive to the rim. He is a major lob threat. I love him on the defensive end of the floor because he's able to contain his defender, block the shot of the offensive player, and of course, he has terrific instincts off the basketball coming to defend the rim. I love this pick for Golden State.
Yeah, nearly 20 points, nearly 11 rebounds per game. PJ, despite only have played the 3 games, seems like a can't miss. And in today's NBA, and we've seen it as the Charlotte Hornets pick is in, and we'll get to that coming up momentarily. PJ, this guy is built for the modern NBA.
Yeah, exactly what Fonz was talking about, too. When you have somebody that can block shots and rebound and runs the floor like a deer with, guys like Draymond and Steph and hopefully Clay pushing the ball, he's perfect. And if you're a young guy, it's really hard to come into this league. If you're going to come in, you like to play with some veterans who are pretty good. You can't ask for better veterans than the ones he's going to get a chance to play with. Hopefully that whole crew will be there for James Wiseman.
Yeah, and Doris, you cannot, to be the second pick in the draft and end up with the Golden State Warriors, whatever happens with injury news with Clay, just what an outstanding opportunity for him. It almost reminds me a little bit, not the same, obviously, of David Robinson going to San Antonio after they had all those injuries, or Tim Duncan, rather, going to San Antonio after the David Robinson injury. But just a chance to get to an organization that is now and ready to go.
Well, it's just a great comparison by you, correct? Because the high character men of Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and the work habits and everything they do every single day to establish the culture of the Golden State Warriors, truly incredible. And listen, this guy is such a physically gifted guy, an average passer, but the ability to play in space, to set the screen and roll hard and do all the things that you hope. And what's intriguing to me is, and I know he's going to improve as a shooter, but Penny Hardaway said, I've been working with this young man since he was a junior in high school, and I've been training him as a guard, so a 7-footer with a 9-foot-6-inch reach, so defensively he's going to be a factor right away. But how exciting for the Golden State Warriors. You needed some good news today with what's pending with Klay Thompson, and James Wiseman is tremendous pickup for them. This guy, just a low bust potential in my mind because he's so physically gifted.
And, Fonz, we're looking at the players, and you could see James Wiseman's eyes are all red. I mean, we've seen the emotion already, and again, you're not in the arena setting. They're at home. Maybe that makes it even a more emotional experience to be surrounded by your parents and your loved ones in this, much different draft situation, but already seeing the emotion from these young men who are getting set to embark on a career, especially right now in a situation where, especially for James Wiseman, he's not played in an actual basketball game. Tomorrow's going to be 1 year on the nose. And so, you wonder, when are you going to get back to playing the game you love? And now he's getting to go out west to Golden State. So the Charlotte Hornets are on the clock at number 3. That pick is in, and it will be LaMelo Ball is selected number 3 by the Charlotte Hornets. Of course, LaMelo Ball at 6'7", went overseas. Here's Mike Schmitz on LaMelo Ball.
Mike Schmitz Player Profile.
LaMelo Ball has the most star power of any player in this draft as a 6'7" point guard who can make every pick and roll pass and is dynamite in the open court. Needs to improve as a perimeter shooter, defender, and decision maker, but if he puts it all together, he has the most upside in this draft.
Mike Schmitz Player Profiles brought to you by Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Learn more at Indeed.com/credit. So we expected Edwards, Wiseman, Ball. We didn't know in which order. I think if we went back to the pregame, I think that would be the order that we selected here. And Fonz, LaMelo Ball, a guy, this is not a traditional he skipped college and has already been a professional in a couple of different countries, but he's a guy who is already grown to, 6'6", almost 6'7", at the point guard position.
This kid is crazy talented. He needs to have the keys, and he's a high-risk, high-reward kind of guy because of the flash that he plays with. He has excellent vision, so fluid, terrific feel. He is an excellent passer with either hands, puts it right on the hands, allowing the shooter to be able to take the shot in rhythm. He's got the potential to be a triple-double guy at 6'7", incredible passer, shifty. He's got a hezzy game. He's got the entire package on the offensive end, except he's got to become a more efficient shooter and take better shots. His shot selection at times has been questionable.
Though he's raw on the offensive end, he's 6'8", 225, 230. He's physically ready. I'm surprised, Fonz, but I'm excited about this young man.
I'm excited about him too, Doris. He can rebound the basketball and push it out in transition. He's got a good handle. He's an explosive leaper as well. But you mentioned it, Doris. When it comes to the NBA or even college for that matter, short clock situations when that guard's coming off that ball screen or an ISO situation, Patrick Williams can move his feet and keep the guard in front. That's a big value for the Chicago Bulls.
PJ, I thought Patrick Williams was brutally honest in a good way where he said, I don't think I'm ready for the NBA yet, but, you know, it's time to go. And I think not only did he said he's not ready, but he said he's going to the NBA because he wants to get developed by the best coaches, the assistant coaches, and play with players. And here he is going to a very young Chicago Bulls squad, and we'll have Billy Donovan, the new head coach of the Chicago Bulls.
Yeah, my former player at Seton Hall, Arturas Karnisovas, in charge of basketball operations there with Mark Eversley. I like the pick. How about he's ACC Sixth Man of the Year? Everybody's kind of not saying anything. He didn't start in college. He's the number 4 pick in a draft. He didn't start a game, but he knows how to play. Sets screens. He moves without the ball. He cuts. Yeah, his offense has got to come. Maybe he turned it over a few too many times, but I'll tell you what, his upside is amazing. Only turned 19 in August. I like the future for Chicago.
Yeah, indeed. He will go there. Zach LaVine, of course, has really turned his game from a more athletic game into an all-around game. They selected Kobe White last year, point guard. So slowly but surely, the Chicago Bulls are building, and Patrick Williams ends up going number 4 overall to Chicago. All right, let's set up the next couple of picks for you. The Cleveland Cavaliers are now on the clock at number 5. Atlanta is on the clock at number 6. We were talking about the Israeli 6'9", big man, actually all-around game. He's very multi-positional in Deni Avdija. Fonz, is it just me thinking about geography and Dayton, Ohio, and Cleveland, Ohio, or could this be a stop where Obi Toppin could end up?
Yes. I thought going into the draft that he needed a two-way defensive-minded player because the Cavs really struggle on the defensive end. But how can you pass up a guy like Obi Toppin? That dude is electrifying in transition. He's got this wonderful personality that's engaging. So once we're ever able to get fans back in the stands, he'll draw that kind of attention, and without it, he'll draw them on television as well. What a unbelievable talent, and right down the road in Dayton. I think that's the obvious pick for the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Yeah, we will see where Kobe Altman and company go as the Cavaliers are on the clock at number 5, and then the Hawks will be at number 50. Still a part of tonight, and we really haven't seen PJ would be any trade movement. We saw a lot earlier, right? As soon as the transactional period began on Monday, there were a number of trades later in this first round. For example, Portland and Houston did the Trevor Ariza deal, and then Ariza got dealt again, according to reports tonight, going to Detroit. So the Pistons, who will have the 7th pick, may also very likely have the 16th pick as well. And that's another backdrop tonight, PJ, is who's staying and who's staying for long, who'll have the hat on, and but it'll just be a picture of who the hat is before they actually end up in a training camp in a couple of weeks.
Hey, Kesty, I want to be a moving company for Danny Green and Trevor Ariza. They're bouncing all over the place today, so it's good.
Well, the Cleveland Cavaliers on the clock at number 5. We will have that selection for you coming up next. Four picks into the 2020 NBA Draft. I'm Mark Kestisher with Doris Burke, LaFonso Ellis, PJ Carlissimo, and that sound you hear are the Cleveland Cavaliers. Pick is in. Here's the commissioner.
Auburn University.
The Cavaliers selecting Isaac Okoro, the 6'6 freshman out of Auburn University. Those were the last couple of words you heard from Adam Silver, and Isaac and his family right now that's definitely not a family room right there. That looks like a very nice setup he's got with multiple screens and a bright red jacket and hugs all around as Isaac Okoro, a freshman from Auburn, going to the Cleveland Cavaliers. Okoro now the fourth freshman. PJ, we were talking in the break. I guess we have to count LaMelo Ball as a freshman, even though he didn't go to college. But you got 5 guys so far that are all about the same age, right about 19 years of age. And Isaac Okoro going to Cleveland. LaFonso, we had talked about maybe Obi Toppin, but Isaac Okoro is another outstanding young athlete and basketball player.
Well, we talked about it earlier. He feels a need. They needed a two-way defensive-minded player, being one of the worst defensive teams in the league. They got that in Isaac Okoro, 6'6", 225 pounds. He's the best overall defender in this draft. Terrific lateral quickness and stays low the entire time. His off-the-ball D is terrific because he has great instincts. He's explosive in transition and a guy that can guard 1, 2, 3, maybe even a 4 in a small ball situation.
And PJ, if you're Cleveland right now, I mean, it's a long build-up, right? A 46-loss season, and you're going for who you feel is the best player available, and that's upside right there for Okoro especially.
Yeah, it's tremendous upside. You know, Fonz talked about how good his defense was. He needs to improve shooting. He didn't shoot it very well from the perimeter at all or free throw. He was 51% overall. It's interesting. He finished. I love the quote from his coach, Bruce Pearl. Bruce called him the best defensive guard he's ever coached. Bruce Pearl has coached a lot of really, really good defenders. He's a heck of a coach. I love that. Tremendous topside here. Obviously more. You talked about the youth. More down the line. He's strong, and he competes. I really like the pick.
And Doris,
PJ,
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just to further PJ's point, in terms of, you know, he's, as Bruce Pearl said, he goes, I call him a senior because I put a ton of weight on his shoulders and I expected him to deliver. So he gets a second-team All-SEC nod. That is a vastly improved conference. There was a time where it lagged behind the ACC, the Big 12, but that conference has come a long way. Incredible infusion of great coaching. And as Bruce Pearl said, he won't be big boyed by anybody. I don't think Cleveland is probably done making moves. There are some players on their roster that perhaps, you know, what is the trade market for some of their guys, but this is about building a roster and developing players, and I like this pick.
Yeah, and PJ, something Fonz mentioned as well was, and I think you said it as well, was the defense that's already there. We've seen in this league, if you're two-way or at least a really high-energy defender, you're getting on the court in some form or fashion at a young age.
Kesty, he does it. He can guard the ball. He can guard off the ball. He rotates well. He was all conference. We mentioned that. DB did. He was also all freshman and all defense. I mean, what more do you want him to do? He was unbelievable. That's why Bruce liked him so much. And I'll tell you, hopefully he can improve the shot. There's no question about that. He's just under 70 from the free throw line. That's not terrible, but he really struggled from deep. Everybody wants the 3 and D. That's fine. There's a bunch of guys who can shoot threes and can't guard anybody. You got to put somebody out on the floor who can play defense. Isaac Okoro can play defense.
Isaac Okoro going number 5 to Cleveland. The Atlanta Hawks are on the clock at number 6, followed by Detroit at 7. The Knicks sitting at number 8. The Washington Wizards will pick 9th, and then rounding out the top 10 of this draft will be the Phoenix Suns, who had that great run in the NBA bubble, and certainly the Chris Paul trade on top of that coming up when the transaction period began on Monday. But all freshmen so far going here in the first 6 picks, including at number 1, Anthony Edwards, after 1 year at the University of Georgia, is going number 1 to the Minnesota Timberwolves, and he joins us right now. Anthony, first off, congratulations. What was it like? We didn't know who was going to go number 1 tonight. What was it like when you heard that you were going number 1 to Minnesota?
I think Omar told me 3 minutes in. Yeah, he told me like 3 minutes in, and I was just in shock, man. I was just happy because I've never been in the spotlight. I've always just been a person that had to earn everything. So I was just happy, man. It was a superb moment for me.
Anthony, you had a picture of both your mom and your grandma behind you. I'm just curious, as you sort of fulfill a dream and, made a very visible reminder of two women who meant a great deal to you, just what went into your thinking about those pictures there?
To be honest with you, it wasn't even anything to think about. It was like the two most important people in my life that has changed me and made me grow up the way that I grew up. I had to put them next to me. I didn't have a choice, so it wasn't too much to think about. I was just blessed with those pictures by this young lady, and I had to put them next to me.
Hey, Anthony, it's PJ Carlesimo. Let me ask you, I know all the things you do really well. What are the things you think you need to work on and improve on to be able to come in there and make some impact?
I feel like for me to make an impact immediately, I got to be consistent. I got to stay locked in the whole game, the whole time, no matter what I'm doing. And I just got to show that I can play really good defense at all times.
Alongside PJ Carlesimo, Doris Burke, LaFonso Ellis, I'm Mark Kestisher. I should have introduced us all. Shame on me, Anthony. How important was it for you to play in a system at Georgia, a fast system, on ball, off ball, that could help pay off for you moving to the next level?
To be honest, the system that I played in at Georgia, it was extremely important for me because I always had the ball in my hand no matter what age I was going. So I feel like it made a huge impact on my ability to move without the ball and cut. So I feel like it played a huge role in me growing as a basketball player.
How do you think your skill set will complement D'Angelo Russell and Karl Anthony Towns, obviously two of the focal points for Minnesota?
I just feel like me being able to score the ball so well, me being able to facilitate when Russell wants to be off the ball and I can bring the ball up and facilitate. I feel like that's just complement him well. And then me and Karl Anthony Towns running ball screens, his pick and pop, him being able to shoot the ball, being the best three-point big man in the league is just, tremendous. So they're going to help me evolve. So that's all it's about.
With, Trae Young at, scoring nearly 30 points per game. We'll see what happens with John Collins. They're a very young team at 24 years of age. They just added another really big piece for the future.
Well, they got an excellent coach. I think Lloyd Pierce does a super job, and this is the kind of player you love to have, a young guy. He does the things. Fonz and DB both talked about them. He's a really good offensive rebounder. You can't teach that. Free a game. He blocks shots. He gets steals. He overplays the passes in there. He does some things that are really, really tough to teach. That's why Andy Enfield liked him so much. I think he's going to be a really good player for Lloyd, and I think he will help their other young guys.
So Onyeka Okongwu will go to the Atlanta Hawks at number 6. And the pick is in, the Detroit Pistons at number 7.
In the 2020 NBA Draft, the Detroit Pistons select Killian Hayes from Lakeland, Florida.
Mike Schmidt's player profile.
The French-American point guard is one of the most polished pick-and-roll players in the draft and can make every ball screen read when he gets downhill to his left hand. He has great size at 6'5", 210 pounds, but needs to improve as a perimeter shooter and learn how to play with other good players.
Killian Hayes, our second international player going here at number 7, though you heard Fonz Mike Schmitz mention, born in Lakeland, Florida. His dad went overseas to play pro ball, mostly in France, and that's where Killian Hayes comes across the Atlantic from France. What kind of a player are we looking at here?
Yeah, left-hand dominant guard who can make every pass out of the pick and roll. He uses his body very well, and he does a good job of overpowering smaller guards at 6'5", and physical. He can do that. He's got floaters in the lanes, changes speeds and directions really well. Not a great athlete. An area of his game that I'd like to see improve. He's really left-hand dominant. He's got to learn how to use that right hand if he's going to be successful in this league.
PJ, you were with another young French point guard, maybe a couple inches shorter, many years ago. There's a couple of French point guards that are going to go in the first round tonight, and Killian Hayes is one of them.
Well, I'll tell you what, Killian Hayes, if he can be half the player that Tony Parker was, or Evan Fournier is doing a great job right now, too. I like Killian a lot. I saw him a couple years ago in Treviso, played in Basketball Without Borders Global Camp, run by the NBA, both in 2017 and 18. He's disruptive. He gets his hands on a lot of passes. Fonz kept mentioning he is left-hand dominant. It's funny how many of those lefty point guards, it just seems like they really don't like to go right, but he can make all the passes. I think he's got a chance to come in and play with a lot of confidence. He will remind people that haven't seen him an awful lot of D'Angelo Russell. And even though he was born in Florida, Kesty, he really grew up in France. So, I mean, he's a true international player. He's going to benefit from playing in the Bundesliga this year. He played in the top category in Germany this year for Team, and they really let him have his way. That really helped him grow an awful lot as a player.
And Doris, the Detroit Pistons, who are at 20-46. This is the first draft as GM for Troy Weaver. They picked up apparently Trevor Ariza in a trade that will be consummated when the free agency period begins. They got some cap space, and they pick up the French guard.
Well, I'm just so happy you mentioned Troy Weaver because PJ's a Big East guy, and obviously, you know, he goes back to being an assistant on Jim Boeheim's staff at one point and then goes to Sam Presti as an assistant GM. Long-time tenure there, has paid his dues, and his mandate from the ownership is restore the base of young talent. They had a tremendous need at the point guard position. You know, might there be some adjustments because of the not elite athleticism? Yes, but there's sidestep, step back, all the reads necessary in pick and roll. And yeah, you know, listen, Killian Hayes, we'd love to see him turn into Tony Parker. I'd love a redux of Tony Parker because, boy, was that fun to watch.
Théo Maledon, the other French point guard who will likely go here in the first round as we get set. This is the fun part. The New York Knicks are on the clock at number 8. If we were at Barclays, you might hear some booing. But we will find out that pick coming up for you in just a little bit. So the Knicks are on the clock at 8. Let's welcome in Patrick Williams, who is just selected by the Chicago Bulls, number 4 overall. Patrick, a freshman from Florida State. Patrick, it's Mark Kestisher, Doris Burke, LaFonso Ellis, and P.J. Carlissimo. This is a quick rise for you. I know I read some quotes where you said you weren't sure if you were ready for the NBA. Did you, in your wildest dreams, anticipated that you could go number 4 overall in the draft?
I mean, it's crazy. I mean, it's definitely a surreal feeling. I have an opportunity to do something special, so I just got to make sure that I, make the most of my opportunity.
Patrick, this is Doris Burke. I'm just curious. I'm a huge Leonard Hamilton fan, covered the ACC for a long time. Can you talk about his influence in particular on the defensive end? Obviously, you bring great attributes, but how do you think playing for Leonard probably helped prepare you for this?
Not sure if we're having some issues with Patrick hearing us. Patrick, can you still hear us? I think we might have lost Patrick Williams there as he goes number 4 overall to Chicago. That's too bad because we really wanted to get a sense of the program he came from. And Doris, you pointed it out, as Leonard Hamilton has slowly but surely put together really good pros, solid pros all across the NBA.
Yeah, he requires it every single day at practice. There's an attention to detail, a level of expectation, and their recruiting has significantly grown over the last 5 to 8 years, where they're just getting player after player that is finding their way to the league. Kesty.
Doris, I'm hearing that Patrick is back with us. Doris, if you want to ask that question one more time.
Yeah, Patrick, again, it's Doris Burke. I'm curious the influence of Leonard Hamilton in the 1 year you spent with him at Florida State, because I know what he demands on the defensive end. So I'm just curious your perspective there.
I mean, for sure, Coach Ham was huge. Just, supported me through everything. Coming in, I always wanted to be defensive minded, and Coach Ham is huge on defense, so it was a perfect fit from the jump. And he kind of put me in positions offensively as well to show what I could do with the ball, without the ball. So, Coach Ham was a huge part.
Patrick, LaFonso Ellis here. I'm aware of your defensive prowess because I get to see you a lot in the ACC. What can fans expect from you on the offensive end?
versatility. I think I can do everything, whether it's ball in my hands or ball or without the ball. I think I can make plays in any position you put me in. So you can expect to see plays being made in different places at different times.
Patrick, this is PJ. I'll tell you what, first of all, congratulations on winning the regular season. You had a bunch of young guys. You did a great job this year playing for Coach Ham. It's got to be tough, though. Is the Seminole going to play for a former Gator coach? You got Coach Donovan going to be showing you the way there now. He's a great coach. You're going to be okay with the Gator in charge?
Man, I'll be perfect. I'm just learning as much as I can from him, from the rest of the coaching staff, from the players that have been there, and try to get it as take this opportunity that I have and make the most of it.
Well, he had great success. You saw it down in Florida, and he had great success at OKC. You're going to love playing for him in Chicago.
Patrick, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Congratulations.
Thank you.
He's one of the most NBA-ready prospects in this draft.
And Avdia going to the Washington Wizards at number 9 as he joins Omri Caspi as the only first-rounders born in Israel to go in the NBA draft. And LaFonso, there's been a lot of comparisons, not necessarily game for game with Luka Doncic, but as you heard Mike Schmitz mention, a guy with size and a guy with skill who's multi-positional.
Indeed, a fiery playmaking big. He's at his best when he's operating out of pick and rolls. He's got good timing and excellent vision, makes every read and pass. And the thing I love about him, he's always in attack mode when he's coming off those ball screens, trying to get down in the lane and make plays. If there's any concern I have about him, he's one of those guys that is really good at everything, but he doesn't have an elite skill. But I do think he's one of those bigs going to play for at least 10 years in the league.
PJ, you had a chance to see him a little bit as well, right?
I saw him a bunch, Kesty. I like him an awful lot. He didn't just go to Basketball Without Borders in Europe and the BWB Global Camp. He was the MVP in both of them. So he played against the best players in the world. He played the FIBA under-20. He's always excelled. Youngest guy to ever get MVP in the Israeli League. And again, some of the international guys we're looking at are playing in the second division or the third division. He played in the top league in Israel. Plays a lot older than he is. He reminds me, it's got to be some old listeners listening tonight, Paul Pressey or Tony Kukoc. He's a smaller Tony Kukoc or a bigger Paul Pressey. He's a point forward. He makes good decisions. Fonz is right on the money. He's got to learn to shoot the ball better, but he knows how to play basketball.
Phoenix is on the clock at number 10. We'll get back to that in a moment. We have another guest with us right now. He's the number 2 pick overall in the draft. James Weissman, who went to the University of Memphis, goes to the Golden State Warriors. James, it's Mark Kestisher, Doris Burke, PJ Carlissimo, and LaFonso Ellis. First off, congratulations. I know this has been a long wait for you. This has been a year since you left Memphis. Tell us about the emotions of going number 2 and going to a terrific team like the Warriors.
Man, just me going through a lot of stuff throughout this past year. My family going through a lot of stuff. And especially me as an individual going through a lot of stuff really brought me to my emotional tears. But, I mean, I'm just ready to go into a great organization. I'm ready to go into a great environment like this. You got Steph, Clay, and Draymond Green. And I'm just ready to go in there and just learn as much as possible, grow as a player, adapt, and just work my tail off every day.
Well, positional fit is absolutely perfect. Your athleticism is much needed, I think. But can you describe what you're anticipating, how you will complement playing in pick and roll with Steph Curry or Klay Thompson?
I feel the pick and roll situation is great, being able to use my playmaking ability and also just stretch the floor out. I've been working on my game throughout this past summer, on my jump shot and just everything in that sorts. But really my main components is just to rebound, block shots, and run the floor, and just being able to defend on the defensive end and just go in there and just showcase my greatest components and my main components, which I can do, which is run, rebound, and block shots. So, yeah.
Hey, James, this is PJ. How hard has it been for you to go so long without playing competitive basketball?
It's been hard. Throughout this summer, I've been playing with pros already. I've been playing one-on-ones and 5-on-5, 5-on-5s like under COVID measures. But I really just been getting like a lot of experience this past pre-draft process, and I really just been in the gym working on my game this whole year, and I'm ready. I'm confident in myself, my skill set, and I just can't wait to go and play with this great group of guys.
James LaFonso Ellis here. I can barely speak English, so tell me how you decide to learn to speak Mandarin.
I learned how to speak Mandarin when I went to private school my ninth to 10th grade year. I've always wanted to speak, I always wanted to learn Mandarin Chinese, so my friends wanted to learn Spanish. So I just wanted to be different, learn Chinese, but the tradition is great. And also I had a thought in my mind. I was like, okay, my plan is going to the NBA, so this would be great if I can learn Chinese because it's like something that's very unique that I can use. So I just had that in mind and just went for it, man.
Oh, they're going to
You
love.
obviously like challenges. It's one of the hardest languages in the world to learn.
Right?
Yeah, man. It's very hard. Like the Chinese characters, writing and stuff, having exams was hard. But I just, had repetition every day. Just all the hard work that I do on the court, my work ethic, I use it in the classroom. My mom always advocate education first. So I've been a great student throughout my whole educational career and throughout my whole educational year as a student. So it was pretty challenging, but the tradition there in China is great, and it's great to learn.
And we're James Wiseman, who's going to the Golden State Warriors, the number 2 overall pick. You're our third interview here of the top 9 that have been picked, and I haven't asked the first 2. Have you been told anything how quick this turnaround's going to be with a training camp coming up in about 14 days?
Yes. After I got drafted, Coach Kerr said, just make sure you enjoy this time. But, it's time to get to work, and I'm ready to get to work, and I'm ready to just go up there and just have fun with my teammates and just learn and adapt. So this process has been quick, especially this year. Everything has been happening, so it's a very quick process.
Yeah, it's like hurry up and wait. Nobody's waited longer than you to get back into action. And here you go, the Golden State Warriors. Congratulations, James. Nice meeting you on the phone, and we'll see you probably sooner than later.
Thank you so much. I'm very grateful for y'all even interviewing me, so I'm just truly blessed for that. Thank you.
Well, the privilege is ours. Thanks, James. James Wiseman goes to the Golden State Warriors at number 2. Let's pause 10 seconds for station identification. You're listening to the NBA Draft on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. With LaFonso Ellis, PJ Carlosimo, Doris Burke, I'm Mark Kestisher. The 2020 NBA Draft rolling on, and it's time for the Phoenix Suns at number 10.
10th pick in the 2020 NBA Draft, the Phoenix Suns select Jalen Smith from the University of Maryland.
Mike Schmidt's player profile.
Smith is one of the draft's best shooting bigs as he shoots an easy ball from well beyond the NBA line. He also puts a lid on the rim defensively, averaging 2.4 blocks per game during his sophomore season at Maryland. Needs to improve his passing and his ability to step out and guard and pick and roll, but in terms of threes and blocks, he's a perfect fit in today's game.
Phoenix Suns, a lot of excitement in the desert, especially after their 8-0 run, even though it didn't get a playoff bid in the bubble. And then, of course, the Chris Paul acquisition. We just heard Mike Schmitz on Jalen Smith, who rockets up to the top 10, number 10, LaFonso Ellis.
I love Jalen Sticks Smith, one of the best pick and pop centers in this draft. Great pick and roll instincts. He knows when to pop and when to roll. By the way, he shot 37% from 3, so I don't think you have any issue stepping out to a longer line. Significant lob threat on the roll and in transition. Finishes with both hands around the rim. And you talk about motor, he's got a high motor. Gets on that offensive glass. I love this pick by the Phoenix Suns.
Yeah, Monty Williams, Doris, getting himself a good young player who went a big step from freshman year to sophomore year.
Well, he sure did. And consider Mark Turgeon, I was watching an interview the other day, and he said literally they switched the way they were playing mid-season, and he thought Mr. Smith would be the guy who could function the best in the new way they were playing. And I'll tell you what, the guy's ability to pick and pop, similar to Obi Toppin, right? How many times now are you seeing some of the best bigs in the league be able to face up? In fact, think about the Los Angeles Lakers and Anthony Davis. Frank Vogel said to us during the NBA Finals, his ability to make threes and stretch the floor will determine whether we win a championship. It's just such a vital skill for bigs. He can do it, and a great selection. Boy, Phoenix, with the way they finished in the bubble and the acquisition of Chris Paul, one of the best backcourts, and now you add a young, talented big in Jalen Smith, look out.
PJ, I know this is something near and dear to your heart, and that is guys that decided to come back for a sophomore year, and I have to imagine Jalen Smith was one of those guys for you.
Man, Kesty, you can read my mind from across the country. No question. So many of these guys come out too early. They ended up, not getting drafted or end up in the G League, which is a good thing. Don't get me wrong, but they would benefit so much more so often. Stay another year, work on your game, improve. Look what Jalen Smith was able to do. I love the combination. I mean, he was all Big Ten first team and all Big Ten on defense. He doesn't just make threes, he blocks shots on the other end. And look where he got drafted. So there's a message in there for some of you young guys who are in such a hurry to get out of there. Stay where you are and improve and work on your game, and you're going to go a lot higher and be a lot better prepared. Jalen Smith, I think, coming out of his sophomore year, I think he's ready to step in. And I'll tell you what, I'd like to play with that backcourt. I'd like to be a big guy playing with that backcourt, because you're not going to be the focus of the other team's defense. I can guarantee you that, Franz.
Yes. A lot of lobs on the Phoenix Suns for a Stick Smith coming in, just on that offensive glass, defend and run.
San Antonio is at 11. We're not used to having the San Antonio Spurs in the lottery. It's been a long time since they didn't make the playoffs, ended their long run of 22 consecutive years. Are you guys surprised? I guess I'll throw it to Fonz first. Tyrese Halliburton was a name that we heard could have went early, outstanding long point guard from Iowa State. Devin Vassell was another guy who we thought could go really high at Florida State. We're only at number 11, but Fonz, are you surprised we haven't heard those names go so far?
No, not surprised yet, because people are still concerned a little bit about Halliburton. Tyrese Halliburton is terrific. 6'5", long arms, can play both sides of the floor, can shoot it, can make plays out of pick and roll situations. But everybody's concerned about his weight. Can he put on enough weight to be able to take the challenge against some of the more physical point guards in our league?
PJ, for the Spurs, as we said, this is not a usual spot for them, as, again, that was one of those teams like Phoenix that made a run at the end of the bubble.
They played well.
Just missed.
You got to think that if the big guy was with them, a lot of teams could say that, people playing without the complete rosters. But if LaMarcus Aldridge was there, who knows if they would have snuck in again. Pop knows it's time to reload. R.C. Buford, they're going to make good decisions. There's good players out there. This draft is maybe not exceptionally strong at the top, but it's deep. There's a lot of players, so I'm not going to be surprised. Some guys people are slotting 5 through 10. They'll go later or vice versa.
And DeMar DeRozan did pick up his option at almost $28 million. Greg Popovich is still the head coach, Doris. So, look, they've got a chance to get some of that talent that PJ was just mentioning.
Well, you think about some of the picks they've made over the last several years. You get DeJounte Murray, who is an elite defensive player at number 29 and really coming on the offensive end, can get where he wants to go. His length is incredible. Derek White, they get at number 29. So this will be a fascinating pick. And, you talk about how long it's been since they picked in the lottery. 1997 with Tim Duncan, because of the incredible, consistent excellence of this organization. This will be a fascinating pick to me, Kesty.
As we await the San Antonio Spurs, who have a little more time left, their pick is in, as we heard. Now we're just waiting on the announcement of the pick, and let's go to the commissioner.
Pick in the 2020 NBA Draft, the San Antonio Spurs select Devin Vassell from Florida State University.
Mike Schmidt's player profile.
Vassell is an absolute pest on the defensive end of the floor, regularly turning point guards in the backcourt and disrupting opposing players with his length. He shot over 40% from three during his past season at Florida State and has a ton of upside to grow into as a ball handler and a shot creator.
Doris, I know you mentioned how much you love Florida State and Leonard Hamilton, and he's got two guys drafted in the top 11, led by Devin Vassell.
Yeah, and, Leonard Hamilton was very, very honest about this, because one question about him was, could he shot create? And he said, our system doesn't allow for that to happen. But this guy is 41.5% from three-point territory, unselfish guy, really calm and poised. To me, one of the guys he's been compared to is Klay Thompson. And obviously those are big shoes to fill, but just in terms of knockdown shooter, this is a pretty exciting pick for me.
Back up De'Aaron Fox, and they surely got it in Tyrese Halliburton. 6'5", he's the do-it-all guard in this draft. His great vision, passing ability for his size, unparalleled last season. Terrific in transition, had phenomenal vision, can pull up from three, really good off the dribble, gets in the lanes, and if anyone's open, he puts it right on the hands. I love this pick for the Sacramento Kings.
Yeah, Doris, Tyrese Halliburton, by all circles. We've had a chance to call a number of Iowa State games over the years. Steve Prohm, their head coach out there. You mentioned Monte Morris earlier, and here was the guy who backed him up and followed him after his run at Iowa State.
Well, exceptional assist-to-turnover ratio, going to be solid with the basketball, and as you value possessions in the NBA, he's critical, and the shooting is big, right? There was news that Bogdan Bogdanovic, an outstanding shooter, an outstanding playmaker, was going to be on the move. Of course, those talks have broken down. It looks like he'll go into restricted free agency, but they nonetheless make a selection of Tyrese Halliburton, who I think, could potentially fill the shoes if Bogdanovic does go on the move here.
And, PJ, we have a run of sophomores now. That was part of our discussion earlier when Obi Toppin went, and then Jalen Smith, 2 picks after him. 4 of the last 5, including 3 straight. Halliburton, sophomore pick after 2 years in Ames.
And an improved player, but I mean his numbers, people for 15 points a game, but how about 6 boards and 6 assists? He's a true two-way player. A lot of the same things we said about Vassell, you could say about Tyrese. One's a guard, one's a forward. But I mean, he's ready to play. He does things on both ends of the floor. He's efficient. Steve talks about that a lot when he describes him. He's a very efficient player. He changes speeds. He plays, I think, much older than his age. I think a very, very solid pick for the Kings.
All right, let's turn our attention to the number 13 pick. That'll be the New Orleans Pelicans, their first of 4 picks tonight. They've got 3 in the second round. Of course, they have a new head coach in Stan Van Gundy. They've got some outstanding young talent led by Zion Williamson, who was the number 1 pick overall last year. Our Adrian Wojnarowski reporting that New Orleans has been discussing trade scenarios for the 13 pick, so we'll see where that eventually goes. But, Doris, this is a New Orleans team that when Zion was healthy and when they were able to play him in a decent stretch, it was a team that showed a lot of promise.
22.5 points per game for Zion through his first 24 games, so the most since Michael Jordan. And what fascinates me about Stan Van Gundy having he and Brandon Ingram at his disposal is, remember when Stan took Dwight Howard and put 4 shooters around him and went to an NBA Finals and actually would have split Games 1 and Game 2 if Courtney Lee had made a backdoor layup. Like, I am fascinated to see how they build around the centerpiece of Zion. They clearly need a center to me that's big, but whether they're thinking that way in this draft or it's just best available player, I don't know, but that he is the focal point, Zion, and how do you build around that with Stan as your head coach?
PJ, does the DNA of this club change going to Stan Van Gundy now as its head coach?
There's no question it changes. Stan knows exactly how he wants to play. He's an excellent teacher of the game. I think he will get him that way. So, I think it does. I mean, a coach always is going to have his imprint on the team. I think Stan in particular, I think he's a excellent coach everywhere he's been. I think it was a great hire.
Mark Kestisher alongside PJ Carlesimo, LaFonso Ellis, and Doris Burke. The 2020 draft on ESPN Radio. Our latest selection, Tyrese Halliburton, point guard from Iowa State, going number 12 overall to Sacramento. New Orleans is next on the clock. You hear the pick is in. The Celtics will go 14th. And the Orlando Magic at number 15. Boston, of course, that was a pick they got from Memphis from a few years ago in a 3-team trade involving Jeff Green. And so the end of the lottery coming up, and the Orlando Magic will select at 15. The 16th pick, well, we're just going to have to discuss that throughout the night because Portland's making the pick. Houston was supposed to get it, and then it sounds like it'll end up being a Detroit Pistons pick. But the lower half of the first round is where all of those trades, some have been announced, many have not been announced. Teams will be picking for other teams. Fonz, I think the top 10 or top 11 that we figured in this draft have now gone, with Devin Vassell and Tyrese Halliburton going maybe a little lower than expected. Certainly Halliburton going number 12 to Sacramento. Who's kind of on your best available right now as New Orleans sits here at number 13?
Yeah, it's starting to get a bit tight here, but for New Orleans, as I think of them with Zion, they need a three-point sniper.
Well, Aaron Nesmith would certainly fill that possibility, as the commissioner, Adam Silver, will be making the pick on the number 13 selection in mere moments. There are a bunch of really good players, including Sadiq Bey, another guy who's an outstanding shooter who played at Villanova as well, who is available for the draft. Waiting on the selection of the New Orleans Pelicans, and it is ready to go. Let's hear from the commissioner.
In the 2020 NBA Draft, the New Orleans Pelicans select Kira Lewis Jr. from the University of Alabama.
Mike Schmidt's player profile.
Lewis is a speed demon and a quick-twitch athlete at the point guard position who changes ends in the blink of an eye. His ability to go from slow and relaxed to shot out of a cannon to the rim is extremely special for a player his age, and rivals De'Aaron Fox in terms of his quickness in the open court.
There you go, Fonz, and I think Mike Schmidt's right on the money. Speed for days with Kira Lewis now going to New Orleans.
Indeed, one of the most exciting transition players in this draft. Speedy and gets to the rim at will. Like De'Aaron Fox, he has the keen ability to get downhill in the half court and in transition. He's an absolute blur. Stops and starts on a dime. Great finisher around the rim. He's got a little Euro step and has great off-foot finishes when the big rotates over. So I love the bag that he has on the offensive end.
PJ, we just got to look inside the New Orleans draft room, and you can never tell, but David Griffin, the Executive Vice President of Basketball Operations, high fives all around. It looked like they got the man they wanted at number 13, Kira Lewis Jr.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if he is. I'll tell you what, he does a lot of things. I think he's a little bit under the radar for as talented as he is. He makes threes. He shot like almost 37%, makes 80% of his free throws. A better defender than people give him credit for. Yeah, he needs to be stronger. There's no question about that. And you'd like him to have a few less turnovers. But Fonz said it. You talk about getting the ball foul line to foul line, he is unbelievable with that. He's really, really special. And he's young, even though sophomore, just turned 19 back in April. I like him an awful lot. I think he's going to be a very good player. I think he's going to be an impact player for that team.
That's 4 straight sophomores now going for the the New Orleans Pelicans, Kira Lewis Jr. The Boston Celtics on the clock at number 14. It's coming up next. This is the NBA Draft presented by Merrill on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. We are waiting on the Boston Celtics, their final seconds of their 5-minute allotted time before the 14th selection of the 2020 NBA Draft. Mark Kestisher, LaFonso Ellis, PJ Carlissimo, Doris Burke, Kevin Winter will join us as well. Glad you could join us here on this, I guess, historic night of NBA drafting. It is a virtual draft, teams in their war rooms, but all the available players are in their own homes or in other areas. The commissioner, Adam Silver, and Mark Tatum, who will succeed him for the second rounder here at the ESPN studios. And, of course, our esteemed talent all across the country. PJ out on the West Coast, LaFonso in the middle of the country, Doris and I out on the East Coast. And Kira Lewis Jr. was the latest pick. The Celtics at 14. PJ, we've seen, Oklahoma City's going to be the team now between now and 2026 that going to have multiple picks. I mean, multiple. We're talking 17 first-round picks. But Danny Ainge was one of those collectors of picks. He's been sitting on a treasure trove. Do you expect him to use all these first-round picks here tonight?
I don't think they have enough room for all of them. I think he's going to package some and do a job. They had 3 first-round picks last year, Kesty, in the draft. They got 3 first-round picks this year. That's incredible. I got to think it's not Danny's nature to share, so I think he will trade and try and extract something back. I don't think he's going to be generous with those picks, but I think he'll get something back. I don't think there's room for 3 more Celtics.
And Fonz, well, we got the commissioner coming up to the podium right now. And we'll hang on that, and we'll get the commissioner's selection of the Boston Celtics coming up for you. But, Fonz, you had mentioned in best available talent, there's still some shooters out there.
And Aaron Nesmith is one of those shooters, so I expect him to go soon.
All right, well, let's see if this is the moment as we go to the commissioner, Adam Silver.
Pick in the 2020 NBA Draft, the Boston Celtics select Aaron Nesmith from Vanderbilt University.
Mike Schmidt's player profile.
Nesmith is one of the draft's best shooters, knocking down over 50% of his threes on over 8 attempts per game as a sophomore. He stands 6'6" with a strong frame and a 6'10" wingspan that should allow him to continue improving as a perimeter defender.
There you go, right on cue. Aaron Nesmith going to the Boston Celtics. I don't know if they were hoping to get Tyrese Halliburton all the way down to 14. They didn't, but they get a really good player, Fonz, in Nesmith at 14 overall.
Indeed, the Celtics needed a young, speedy guard who could shoot and distribute to protect an aging Kemba Walker, and Aaron Nesmith fits that description. One of the best scorers in this draft, can score at all 3 levels. Terrific off-ball screens, nice mid-range game, can shoot it off the dribble, and he's really good with these little subtle shot fakes to get his shot off. He's a 3-and-D wing at this level, finishes above the rim. I love this kid.
Yeah, PJ continuing to add to a young team that made it to the conference finals, 3 times in the last 4 years, and they add Nesmith to that collection. Danny Ainge does in Boston.
And I'll tell you what, he plays both ends of the floor. He's a good defender. He's good, over 5 rebounds a game. His numbers are staggering, the numbers that he puts up. You heard Mike Schmidt say, he shoots 50% from 3. That's really impressive. He shoots 8 of them a game. That's really hard to do. Over 5 boards a game. I really like him. He was on the academic honor roll. You're getting the whole package right there. And he plays very, very hard. Brad Stevens is going to love Aaron Nesmith.
Yeah, he's a guy who didn't get to finish out his entire season, suffered a foot injury in the midseason. Fonz, I heard those numbers, and I just wanted to repeat them again. 52% from three-point land, 4 games of at least 7 3-pointers. Yes. An amazing work in Nashville at Vanderbilt for Aaron Nesmith adding to this Boston team.
Yeah, and at this level, you're more impactful if you can shoot it off the dribble and be a catch-and-shoot guy. Aaron Nesmith can do both. He's terrific at kind of yo-yoing the basketball and all of a sudden just raised with deep range, and he's terrific at getting in gaps. He's got a nice 15-foot pull-up jump shot as well, and he's terrific in catch-and-shoot situations. They're getting a nearly complete guard with a high ceiling in Aaron Nesmith.
Well, guys, 7 years ago, it was the Giannis draft. Join Adrian Wojnarowski for a special 3-part podcast with exclusive access to the reigning 2-time MVP, plus extensive interviews with then Bucks GM John Hammond and Hawks GM Danny Ferry. Download and subscribe to the Woj Pod wherever you listen to podcasts. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to hear any of that at all, but it was fascinating. That was the draft, of course, much like this, which didn't have a lot of hype at the top. And Giannis seemingly came out of nowhere at number 15, but it was more than that. It was the Bucks going over to Athens. Danny Ferry then with Atlanta also knew about him, had him into Atlanta, and how that all played in, hey, don't let anybody know you were here. We don't want the world to know about you yet. And obviously turned into one of the great players, great young players in the NBA, and the Bucks, of course, are building on that roster after a couple of disappointing trips to the playoffs in a row. So we are done through the lottery portion of the NBA draft. Number 15 pick is coming up, the Orlando Magic. And, PJ, because there was a deal for their second-round pick going to Milwaukee. Orlando is one of those teams, and we've had a few already, that have just one pick here tonight unless they trade back in.
Yeah, and Steve Clifford's group did a really good job getting themselves into the playoffs. They're certainly headed in the right direction. But you talk about opposites. We talk about Danny Ainge sitting on 3 first-round picks to start, 4 overall, and then you got some other teams that only have 1 pick. So it's a little easier to focus in. You don't know who's going to be there when you get there, but it's when it's one, you better get it right. No question about that. I like what Steve Clifford has done in Orlando, and I think this is a very important pick for them. I don't think we're talking about way down the line. They're talking about getting incrementally better this year in a much improved Eastern Conference.
And, Coach, they really scored struggling in the basketball last year, so I think they need a scoring guard to complement Markelle Fultz. And we know that DJ Augustine and potentially Evan Fournier are going into free agency, so they need some help on the offensive end.
That's the voice of LaFonso Ellis. PJ had something as well?
Yeah, well, I was going to say, Fonz predicted the pick last time. I was wondering where he was going here. I thought he was going to say Tyrese Maxey's going to be the next pick, so I didn't want to interrupt him.
He's dropping Fonz bombs here tonight. Exactly. That's PJ Carlissimo. LaFonso Ellis. We'll have Doris Burke with us a little bit later on as well.
First time since 2000, no lottery picks from either Kansas, Kentucky, North Carolina, or Duke.
Wow. I mean, the blue bloods of the sport, and they have owned it for a long time, Fonz. And Florida State getting 2 of those selections in the top 11. There have been some remarkable finds, and there may be some more to come because the Orlando Magic are sitting at number 15. The pick is in, and here's Adam Silver.
The 2020 NBA Draft, the Orlando Magic select Cole Anthony from the University of North Carolina.
Mike Schmidt's player profile.
Although he battled injuries this past season, Anthony is one of the best scorers in this draft. With deep range, the ability to stop on a dime in mid-range spots, and attack the rim aggressively. He plays with a toughness and an edge that you like to see in a point guard with his physical tools.
Well, there you go. North Carolina is on the board thanks to Cole Anthony. Fonz had a streaky year, as you heard, but a guy, obviously, Greg, his dad, and now going to the Orlando Magic.
An absolutely fearless competitor, plays with high energy, a high-volume scorer, plays hard on both ends of the floor, 3-level scorer, can make a pull-up 3, gets in the lanes, got good body control. He's not a great athlete, but he finishes well with both hands around the rim. He'll get on the glass for you, and he's underrated as a ball defender. The only thing I'd like to see with him is better shot selection, and that would raise his field goal percentage.
Yeah, PJ, another guy who had a little roadblock in the season. He missed, 11 games, had a partially torn right meniscus. What do you recall seeing from him as he heads over to Orlando?
I loved him. I had him during the regular season. First of all, he's he's a very, very good rebounder, almost 6 rebounds a game from the guard position. Really good defender. His father, Greg Anthony, of course, the excellent player and broadcaster, I had him in the 1988 Olympic trials in Colorado Springs. He was the best Fonz I ever saw, getting down in his stance and guarding you 94 feet. Well, guess who else can get down in a stance and guard? Cole Anthony. People, talk about all he does offensively. He can get down in his stance and move his feet. I love him an awful lot. He's got tremendous confidence. He's been the best at almost everything he's done. He plays with a lot of confidence. I think that's going to serve him very well. Kesty, don't forget, that was Doris's pick on the pregame show, I think, for sleeper, maybe the highest ceiling. People didn't realize just how good he could be.
And we'll have to get Doris's reaction at some point. Some technical difficulties with her setup at the moment. But Cole Anthony going number 15 to Orlando. The 16th pick is up next. You will hear it as it is called for the Portland Trail Blazers. But it will go to the Detroit Pistons in the end because Portland and Houston made a trade earlier that is yet to become official, the Robert Covington, Trevor Ariza deal, and then Ariza is going to end up going to Detroit. So it'll be Portland's call. And then Adrian Wojnarowski is reporting, what if I told you guys Oklahoma City and a first-round pick would be in the news with Woj? How about this one? Woj is reporting that Minnesota is acquiring Ricky Rubio from the Oklahoma City Thunder and the 25 and the 28 that is a part of the Schroeder deal for a package that includes the number 17 pick. So Sam Presti's going to take a couple of those picks late here in the first round, and we'll move up to number 17. But more on that in a moment. Let's go back to the third pick in the draft. That was LaMelo Ball going to the Charlotte Hornets, and LaMelo is joining us right now. LaMelo, it's Mark Kestisher, LaFonso Ellis, and PJ Carlesimo with you. To say this has been a long and winding road for you may not tell the whole story. What are the emotions here tonight with your family, the youngest of the Ball brothers, and going to Charlotte?
The emotions is all positive. I mean, everybody around here happy. I mean, right when they called my name, we all got happy. I mean, everything's going well right now, and I'm just feeling blessed for real.
LaMelo, all the traveling you did, Lithuania and Australia, down playing in Australia and New Zealand, it's going to be nice to be in the States. You chose not to go the college route. You did it a little bit differently. Obviously, it's paid off for you. Looking forward to playing a lot of basketball in the States going forward?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I'm definitely happy to be back in the States. It feels like I haven't played in front of my people in a long time, for real. I mean, I've been overseas, like you just said, hella times. So just coming back and playing in the States now is a blessing, and I'm ready.
How about that brother of yours? I think there's going to be a little bit of competition right now. Did it start already? He edged you by one, but I'll tell you what, that's pretty special for a family. Number 2 pick in 2017 and number 3 pick this year. What have you two been saying to each other?
Not really too much. I mean, we was both just happy. He's happy I got picked. I was happy when he got picked. And like I said, I just let God take the wheel. So whatever pick I was, I could have been 60 or 1 or 3. It really don't matter. Like I said, I'm going to just lace them up and get on the court like everybody else.
LaMelo, this is LaFonso Ellis. Just curious, having to leave the States and then go play on international soil, how do you think that prepared you for what you're going to face coming back to American soil, but this time in the greatest league in the world, in the NBA?
I think it prepared me because I was playing with grown men and pros. So that's obviously going to help you every day, just going at them and practicing and stuff like that. So I feel like, and it's a whole different game of basketball also. So I feel like you can add it to your arsenal. And I feel like I did that. So I feel like it's helped me.
LaMelo, congratulations going number 3 to Charlotte. The journey begins, and it begins quickly. It was like a lot of hurry up and wait and stand by, and now you get a chance to head over to camp, and we look forward to seeing you down the road. Thanks for joining us for a few minutes.
For sure. Thank y'all.
There you go, LaMelo Ball joining us, the number 3 pick overall by the Charlotte Hornets. All right, so back to the draft, and we are at number 16. This will be officially a pick by the Portland Trailblazers, but by way of a couple of trades, will end up in Detroit. And the pick is in. It is Isaiah Stewart, who goes from the University of Washington, as Isaiah Stewart is the number 17 pick, a freshman. That's right out of your backyard, PJ Carlesimo.
Yeah, I tell you what, I don't like him. I love him. He's unbelievable, Kesty. He knows how to play basketball. He's a throwback player. He's going to knock you down. Shot just under 60% from the field, 77% of his free throws. He didn't take me. He's 5 for 20 for 3, so he's not a 3-pop man yet. But I'll tell you what, he was very reliable out to the elbow. But he's so strong. He blocks shots. He's a force underneath. Yeah, they played zone. Mike Hopkins teaches the Jim Boeheim zone extremely well at UW. But I'll tell you what, he can protect the basket well. Maybe guarding guys on the perimeter will be a little bit of an adjustment. But this man is a winner, and he plays so hard. He's such a competitor. He's going to surprise people. He's going to be a very effective player in the league for a long time.
Fonz, kind of an old-school type player, right, as PJ's describing it.
No question. Big, physical, big barrel chest. Not a great athlete. He's 6'9", but he's got a 7'4" wingspan that allows him to be able to play above the rim on both ends of the floor. Excellent on the offensive glass at 3 offensive rebounds a game. And if you want heart and toughness to be a part of building your culture, Isaiah Stewart is that guy.
And I think Doris Burke is rejoining us right now as well. This is 2 picks now. This will end up with the Pistons. They had Killian Hayes earlier on, and then they get a big bruising force in Isaiah Stewart now coming at number 16, officially picked by Portland, Doris.
Right. Character, maturity, relentless on the offensive glass. Again, you're trying to build your talent base, so when you're adding high character people, that helps because obviously it's going to be a little bit of a process. But Mike Hopkins cannot say enough about this young man. And again, the one question that everybody wonders, because it's 6'9", he's a power player. Can he guard on the perimeter? That will remains to be seen. But obviously, a big talent upgrade, and that's what you're looking to do if you're Troy Weaver.
So it'll be Isaiah Stewart, officially selected by Portland at number 16, but by way of a couple of Trevor Ariza deals, will end up in Detroit at number 16. Guys, the 17th pick is in. The Minnesota Timberwolves. We described Woj reporting the trade. This will end up going to Oklahoma City. Alexei Pokusevski goes the 7-footer who played in Greece at the second level in Greece. Pokusevski is a Serbian player and a developing player. He's a guy, LaFonso, by all accounts, and there's not a ton of video on him, but he's long, he's lanky, but shows a lot of skill.
Yeah, 7 feet, 195 pounds. He's the youngest player in this draft. Knocks down threes off screens or pull-ups or off the dribble. Think of Bol of the Nuggets. Rips and goes in transition. He can drive it with either hand. He's really good in pick and rolls. The question is he going to be able to put any size on that slight frame of his? Otherwise, he'll be pushed around. But I love his overall skill and feel for the game.
And, PJ, whether this was going to Minnesota or eventually ends up to Oklahoma City, this is kind of old-school talent pick, middle to late first round, and then stash and try to get it going.
Yeah, I like it as a stash against the guy I saw. I played at Basketball Without Borders. NBA run the global camp in Serbia. Played very well. He's really skilled, Kesty. You know, what Fonz was alluding to with the Bol comparison. He can handle the ball really, really well for a guy with this kind of size. Clearly, this is a down-the-line pick, but I like the pick an awful lot. He's not going to be 19 until December. Pokusevski is going to be a good player in this league. It just may take a little while.
So Alexei Pokusevski going number 17, picked by the Timberwolves, and when it's all said and done, will end up in Oklahoma City. The Dallas Mavericks on the clock at number 18. The pick is in. Here's Adam Silver, the commissioner.
18th pick in the 2020 NBA Draft. The Dallas Mavericks select Josh Green from Sydney, Australia, and the University of Arizona.
Mike Schmidt's player profile.
Green is a prototype 3-and-D style wing. At 6'6", 210 pounds with a 6'10 wingspan and a capable catch-and-shoot 3-ball. He's continuing to gain confidence from beyond the arc and can improve as a ball handler, but he's a perfect fit on the wing spot in that 3-and-D mold.
Josh Green, who comes by way of Australia, moved to Arizona about 6 years ago, now 20 years of age. What can you add to what Mike Schmidt said, LaFonso, on Josh Green now with the Dallas Mavericks?
Well, Coach, I love this. His best attribute is his on-ball defense. He does a great job of containing the dribble, fights through ball screens, terrific in isolation situations defensively because he's strong and is able to move to keep the dribbler in his chest. I think he's got the potential to be a terrific 3-and-D guy. He's got to continue working on those three mechanics and have some confidence from the three, but make no question about it, that kid can absolutely guard.
And Doris, for the Dallas Mavericks, they could certainly use that after we've seen a great offensive team, and that's kind of the missing piece right now.
Rick Carlisle has said they don't have to be a top 5 defensive team with the capabilities they have on the offensive end, but they do have to be top third. And what his coach, Sean Miller, likened him to is a Jay Crowder type to Fonz's point about being 3-and-D. And think about how much Jay Crowder has developed that perimeter skills, a ton of strong intangibles, obviously needs a little bit of development, but big-time athleticism in the open floor, can get above the rim. Just a tremendous, tremendous young talent.
PJ, Josh Green going to Dallas at 18.
I like him an awful lot. He led the Wildcats in steals. He played Aussie Rules football growing up. He's a tough guy.
That's right.
Played BWB Global back in 2018. Fonsetti knocks down threes. He is a 3-and-D. He needs to play with more confidence. I don't think he knows how good he is. I watch him sometimes, and I think he doesn't realize how special a player he is.
Well, the Brooklyn Nets are picking at 19, but who are they picking for? We'll have another Woj bomb on the other side. Brooklyn on the clock. You're listening to the NBA Draft presented by Marathon on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
You're listening to the 2020 NBA Draft on ESPN Radio and on the ESPN app.
2020 Draft, Round 1, rolling on. Mark Kestisher, Doris Burke, PJ Carlesimo, LaFonso Ellis, Kevin Winter with us as well. The latest pick, Josh Green, going 18th to the Dallas Mavericks. And that leaves the Brooklyn Nets on the clock at 19, but we teased going to break. Adrian Wojnarowski is reporting when we went to break, it was a two-way trade. Now it's a three-team deal. Brooklyn sending that 19 pick initially to the Clippers with Landry Shamet going to Brooklyn, and then Detroit is sending Luke Kennard to the Clippers. So the Detroit Pistons, PJ, will now have 3 picks in the top 19. They took Killian Hayes at number 7. They'll require the 16 pick Isaiah Stewart, and they'll be on the clock with Brooklyn making the pick at 19. More on that coming up in a moment. And the Miami Heat at number 20. But we are pleased to welcome right now Onyeka Okongwu out of USC, who was the 6th pick overall by the Atlanta Hawks. Onyeka, this is Mark Kestisher, Doris Burke, LaFonso Ellis, and PJ Carlesimo. First of all, congratulations to you. What are your initial thoughts on going to a young, exciting, up-and-coming team like the Atlanta Hawks?
Just another piece of the puzzle. Honestly, man, I'm so excited to go to ATL, play with so much young talent. Now I just can't wait to, get healthy and be able to, play alongside Trey and other players.
Onyeka, I know as well for your family, how much this meant, especially for Mom as well. She brought you over here at a young age. A lot of guys have been emotional tonight. What's that been like family-wise, doing this draft a little differently, being virtual and being from home?
Man, honestly, me and the rest of the draft prospects, we've been dreaming of this moment for so long. We've been dreaming about being an NBA player since we were young. So being able to, live this dream out is just a blessing.
Onyeka, so much of the conversation is how switchable you are on the defensive end of the floor. I'm curious what you think your strengths are on the offensive end.
Well, I'm an athlete, so I'm able to rim run efficiently. I stay in shape, so I'm able to really rim run up and down the court at all times. And I have quick feet, so I'm able to really rim by bigger defenders because of my foot speed and footwork. And I'm a capable shooter. I really feel like I'm developing into a great mid-range, solid three-point shooter, catch and shoot wide open. So, I really feel like I can really do it different than the offense. It's been a long off-season, 7-8 months. So I've had a lot of time to work on my skills and everything else.
Onyeka, don't forget what you do really, really well. The way you defend, your shot blocking. I like your hands. You get steals on those post-entry passes. That's going to help you out so much in the league. For so many young guys, it's a tough transition. So you keep defending the way you defended for Coach Enfield. That's going to really be big. Do you think you'll be able to be as effective on the offensive glass as you were in college?
Yes, absolutely. Me offensive rebounding is all about effort, consistency. I have methods and plans to get offensive rebounds. That's how I am. Always trying to, when the other players are turning their head, that's when I go right in. I pick and choose sometimes, but I just do different things to get offensive rebounds. It's all about your mindset and your effort.
Onyeka, this is LaFonso Ellis. It's my understanding that you and the Ball brothers played together at Chino Hills and that you and LaMelo are best friends. How special of a day or night is it for you and your best friend to be chosen in this draft?
I texted Melo today for the draft, telling him, good luck, man, with everything. So you deserve that. He's gave me so much love that, Melo's such a great kid, a bright kid. And I'm happy that me and him get to share this moment, for the Hills, represent the Hills. Me and him, the up-and-coming ballers. So I can't wait to see him in the big leagues.
Yeah, and you guys get to play out of the same conference, same division as well, Atlanta and Charlotte. Onyeka, congratulations. Thanks for a few minutes tonight on a big night for you.
Thank you so much.
Onyeka Okongwu, after one season at USC, was the 6th overall pick by the Atlanta Hawks. Let's pause 10 seconds for station identification. You're listening to the NBA Draft on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. Mark Kestisher, Doris Burke, LaFonso Ellis, PJ Carlissimo, Kevin Winter, the 2020 NBA Draft on ESPN Radio, and the number 19 pick selected by Brooklyn, but will end up with the Detroit Pistons, their 3rd first-round pick when it's all said and done. Saddiq Bey, 6'8" sophomore from Villanova, selected by Brooklyn, expected to end up with the Detroit Pistons, and that leaves the Miami Heat at number 20. And PJ, I know Saddiq Bey, they're not related, but you talked a lot of Bey in the pregame show, and Saddiq is one of them, an outstanding young player out of the Villanova program.
Yeah, he's ready to play, Kesty. It seems like he was there longer. A sophomore, he's 21 years old. But, we talk to a lot of guys, 3-and-Ds. There's a lot of 3-and-Ds in this league, but usually we've talked about guys that are really good on one end, maybe not as good on the other. He can do both. He can guard you. There's no question about that. He's not lightning quick laterally, but he gets it done. He's strong. He's a great position defender. He's been very, very well coached. The way he shoots the ball from the perimeter is really going to be important. I think more ready to play than a lot of guys being drafted tonight. Saddiq Bey will fit in right away.
Yeah, and Fonz, you had a chance to see him up close as well.
Yeah, one of the things that I love about him is we knew that he'd be able to shoot the 3 ball at a high clip, but now all of a sudden can you attack the closeouts? And one of the things he improved on from year 1 to year 2 is his ability to be able to beat that guy and then pull up before he got to the defense. I thought his pull-up jump shot off the dribble improved greatly between years 1 and 2.
And Doris, this is we mentioned this earlier when Detroit, picked up the 16 pick. We mentioned Troy Weaver. They end up. This was not a story coming into this draft. The Detroit Pistons are now turning into a story with 3 selections here in the top 19.
Then clearly well studied. Obviously, you think about Sam Presti and how methodical he went about his business, and Troy's been an understudy for quite some time. But just a thought on Jay Wright. A year ago when Dallas Mavericks selected Jalen Brunson in the 2nd round, I was asking Coach Carlisle, how ready is he? And Kesty was ready. This young man is ready as well. I'm excited to see him play.
So Saddiq Bey selected by Brooklyn officially at number 19, will end up via a couple of trades, 3-way trades with the Detroit Pistons. The Miami Heat won the Eastern Conference. They have been very shrewd with their selections and ability to open up some cap space, but they are on the clock at number 20. The pick is in. Here's Adam Silver.
With the 20th pick in the 2020 NBA Draft, the Miami Heat select Precious Achiuwa from Port Harcourt, Nigeria, and the University of Memphis.
Mike Schmidt's player profile.
Achiuwa is a Tasmanian Devil modern big man in a Montrezl Harrell mold on the offensive end of the floor. As a diver, ball handler, and finisher, he's a big-time athlete at 6'9" with a 7'2" wingspan and has 1 through 5 versatility that the NBA covets on the defensive end of the floor.
So the Miami Heat selecting Precious Achiuwa. We spoke with James Wiseman, Fonz, earlier today. Wiseman, of course, only played 3 games. Achua got a chance to get a lot of minutes. He was going to run with Wiseman all season long at Memphis, and Precious put together a really good season.
Indeed. The Miami Heat needed a two-way big to complement Bam Adebayo, and they got exactly that in Precious Achua. He's a rim running forward who loves to run the floor. He can rip it off the glass and push it up in transition and makes pretty good decisions. The area that he has to improve when he's handling it is his finishes around the rim have to be a bit softer. But when you talk about a guy who wants to attack the glass on the defensive end and gets on the offensive end and has decent shooting mechanics, I see him being a terrific complement to Bam Adebayo.
Bam Adebayo, Doris, who went 14th 3 years ago. Tyler Hero was the 13th pick last year and turned out to be an important cog in Eric Spoelstra's wheel, and now they pick up a 6'9" player in Precious Achua.
This is the prototypical Miami Heat player because the athleticism is phenomenal. They're going to put him into that player development program that has done such extraordinary work over the years. This just fits them so perfectly. Is he a 4'5", a 5'4"? Listen, this is a young man who expected to be the running mate of James Wiseman and yet was the lead guy, accepted the responsibility. There's a level of maturity, a 9-foot standing reach. Like, this is prototypical Miami Heat. And when they get this guy who works incredibly hard, I think the skill set is going to take off, guys.
Yeah, PJ, real hat tip to Andy Ellisberg as well. What they've been able to do from, being well over the cap to now being one of very few teams that actually have cap space. Everyone's peeking at, we'll see if Giannis is available next summer, but that's way down the road. Achua, as Doris pointed out, just another really good young talent adding to this team.
Yeah, DB made a great point. Again, when Wiseman goes away, what's going to happen? Guess what? Achua, not only is he Rookie of the Year, he's Player of the Year in the AAC. And I'm going to give you negative stats that, to me, are even more impressive. He shot under 33% from deep and 60% from the free throw line. And he's the Rookie of the Year and the Player of the Year. That's how he impacted the game in so many other ways. It's unbelievable. He really is a Miami player. Spo's going to love him, and he's going to love getting down there. But the first thing they say about him is he'll outwork anybody. Guess where you belong? In South Beach, young man.
And, of course, training camp's going to get underway. First, there'll be a whole bunch of testing as players get into markets at the end of the month, and then a quick training camp into the start of the season on December 22nd. We are on the 21st pick of the draft. Philadelphia 76ers will have their first of a lot of picks here tonight, and the Sixers are on the clock, followed by Denver and the New York Knicks. This is the NBA Draft presented by Merrill on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
You're listening to the 2020 NBA Draft on ESPN Radio and on the ESPN app.
Kevin Richard with you in our studio. Let's get you updated where we're at 15. Cole Anthony was selected by the Orlando Magic. The 16th pick has now made its way to Detroit. The Pistons have selected Isaiah Stewart, big man out of Washington. 17th pick goes to the Oklahoma City Thunder via trades with the Timberwolves. Alexei Pokusevski is the selection. Dallas gets Josh Green at 18. The Pistons get back on the board at the 19th selection with Saddiq Bey out of Villanova and Precious Achua out of Memphis. He goes to Miami. Philadelphia is on the clock before we rejoin Mark Kestisher, Doris Burke, and PJ Carlissimo. LaFonso Ellis, let's circle all the way back to the 4th selection. Patrick Williams out of Florida State. He was selected by the Chicago Bulls.
I love the pick. Chicago needed wing depth, and they got that with Patrick Williams. Patrick Williams can play the 3 or the 4. He can guard 1 through 4, and we know his defensive prowess, and I know he's going to be able to step out and make open three-point shots. That's the next step of his game, and he'll be a guy who will be able to make plays off the dribble as well. I love that pick to the Chicago Bulls.
Yeah, Patrick Williams Fonz going to Chicago at number 4, the first of 2 Florida State players. Devin Vassell went number 11 to San Antonio. We just had Precious Achua, 20th to Miami, the second Memphis Tiger after James Wiseman went second to Golden State. It leaves us with the Philadelphia 76ers at 21, and they are selecting Tyrese Maxey, the Kentucky guard, 6'3" guard. Maxey goes to the 76ers at 21.
Mike Schmidt's player profile.
Maxey has a chance to join the likes of Tyler Hero, Jamal Murray, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and Devin Booker as the next great Kentucky guard to show he has more game in the NBA than he proved in college. Maxey is a big-time scorer who can get it going from the perimeter and has tremendous touch around the rim in the paint.
Doris, any Tyler Hero comparisons with Tyrese Maxey going to the Sixers at 21? I don't know if Doris, if we have her on the line right now, but
you do, Kesty. I love this young man. He's excellent in transition. He's got tremendous instincts as a scorer. 6'8" wingspan to go along with that 6'3" frame. No, he's not the freak athlete with the John Wall type speed. He'll mix his pace. But I just love the feel, the size, the length, the instincts as a scorer. And, you know, I loved Schmitzy's, description. So Hero and Shai and Jamal, they all became better outside of Kentucky because they're always loaded.
That's a good point, Fonz, Doris, and Fonz as well, because we've seen so many guys, you're not going to dominate at Kentucky, even like an Anthony Davis, and still have a lot to prove at that next level.
Yeah, Kentucky had multiple guards last year. It forced them to have to play off the ball, so it took them a little while to kind of make the adjustment, but ultimately he did, and it'll help him now because he was already really good with the basketball in his hands, either on the pull-up, playing out of pick and rolls, etc., but now he'll be able to play without the ball and be able to catch and shoot it as well. I love the fearless effort of Tyrese Maxey on both ends of the floor.
Yeah, and PJ going to a Philadelphia team that got swept out of the first round. Remember, Ben Simmons was injured. They traded Al Horford in a Woj announcement before the draft even begun, as Daryl Morey taking over and Doc Rivers as the head coach, putting their spin here between Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons and reshaping the roster a bit.
Yeah, I'm a big Tyrese Maxey guy. I'm a little surprised, but Fonz just alluded to it. He may be better standstill shooting, catching and shooting the ball, because for all his scoring ability and the way he played for the Wildcats, he didn't shoot the ball well from three. He shot it under 30%. And if I'm in Philadelphia, I couldn't shoot. I couldn't throw the ball in the ocean. Man, if Philly has a guy, how about J.J. Redick, if you recall? You get somebody who can catch and shoot the ball at Philadelphia, he's going to make a ton of shots. So I hope for his sake Tyrese can catch it and shoot it, because those opportunities are going to be there.
Hey guys, this is the latest a Kentucky player has gone in the draft since 2009. We're talking, Doris, over a decade. You got to go back to when Jody Meeks was at number 41, and obviously that predates John Calipari heading to Lexington.
Well, he's just had an incredible run as head coach at the University of Kentucky. His recruiting is as good as anybody in the country. It always seems to come down to Kentucky and Duke at the top of our boards. But I'll tell you what, I don't care where I'm picked if I'm Tyrese Maxey. I'm now in the NBA, and I'm going to play alongside of two All-Stars. That's a pretty good start.
Yeah, the first Kentucky player in a draft has gone, so we'll make that note there as Tyrese Maxey goes 21 to Philadelphia. We're watching Doc Rivers on the TV side being interviewed right now by Reese Davis, and look, things have happened so fast here, PJ. It's still kind of odd to see him with that 76ers pin on his lapel of his jacket.
Yeah, there's no question. I'm sure some days he wonders where he is, although the weather probably gives him a clue. He's not in Los Angeles.
He's not golfing right now.
For sure. By the way, Tyrese's not going to be the last Kentucky. He might have been the first one and went a little late. He's not going to be the last Wildcat to go tonight, because Cal has to make room. He puts his ready for NBA players out and brings in more ready for NBA players.
Well, we just heard the bell. That means the Denver Nuggets, who are picking number 22. The pick is in. We are waiting for the announcement of that one, and we will get that to you in just a bit. But right now, let's welcome in Isaac Okoro, who is now a member of the Cleveland Cavaliers, going 5th overall out of one season at Auburn. Isaac, it's Mark Kestisher, PJ Carlissimo, Doris Burke, and LaFonso Ellis. First of all, congratulations on heading number 5 to Cleveland. What are your thoughts tonight as you embark on your professional career and headed to the Cavaliers?
It was just a great night. Coming in, I was just nervous, ready to get my name called. But after I got my name called, the leash just came off my back. I was just let it.
Isaac, obviously your ability to play on the defensive end has drawn a lot of attention. How important was, Bruce Pearl and the 1 year at Auburn to get you ready for this point?
It was very important. I feel like Bruce put me in the right position to play through my strengths this year, and it showed out.
Isaac, what has this process been like for you? We've talked to so many of the guys who've been picked tonight. It's been such a longer than usual wait. Obviously, you haven't been through this process before like we have documenting it, but how difficult has it been, to not play, postseason tournament play and now wait this long before you get to play hoops again?
I mean, it's been difficult. Going into college, that was my dream of playing in those postseason March Madness, NCAA tournament. Not being able to play in that was sad. And also just, having this corona come around in this long process wait to have your name called. I mean, if you look on the bright side, I had the chance to work on my game even longer. So that's the way I think of it.
Excellent, Isaac. Congratulations. Best of luck in Cleveland. Congrats on going number 5.
All right, thank you.
That's Isaac Okoro went 5th overall to the Cleveland Cavaliers earlier here in this first round. Mark Kestisher, Doris Burke, LaFonso Ellis, PJ Carlesimo, Kevin Winter with you as the NBA draft rolls on, and the Denver Nuggets sitting at number 22. And, of course, Denver, PJ, was a surprise run to the Western Conference Finals after 2 amazing comebacks down 3-1 and a chance to add to this team, obviously with Jamal Murray breaking through this postseason, and an outstanding roster that they have put together under Michael Malone.
Yeah, Mike Malone did an exceptional job. That team, we were talking about it so much, you, Doris, and I down in Orlando, people slept on them. They had the second best record in the West 2 years ago, third best this year. I think people just didn't realize just how good they were and how tough they were. How about the way they came from behind and they broke some kind of record? It seemed they were always involved in 7-game series and they always found a way to win. So really impressive. So I think whoever gets to go there is going to a very nice roster. Tim Connelly, Mike Malone, they've done an exceptional job with that franchise.
And Doris, taking a look at that roster, and we spoke about it a little bit in Orlando, but Paul Millsap is a free agent. Jeremy Grant declined his player option. So there are some roster considerations as, they look to continue to build behind Jokic and Murray.
Right. The local media believes that they will sign Jeremy Grant, who is obviously critical on both ends of the floor as a versatile defender, very switchable, but able to get out in transition. But obviously, if that situation changes, then the power forward situation becomes your immediate need. Backup 2, it would be very interesting to see where they go. But I'll tell you this, that's a team that's going to be a problem. And a problem for a long time, because you want to talk about gaining immeasurable, invaluable experience if you're Jamal Murray, who proved himself capable in the crucible of the biggest moments. Like, they're a big-time problem moving forward for teams.
Well, the pick is in, and the Denver Nuggets have selected Zeke Nnaji, 6'11" center out of Arizona. Nnaji, freshman, one and done, going from Arizona to Denver. That puts the Knicks on the clock at number 23. Milwaukee will select 24th for New Orleans as we continue here late in the first round. You're listening to the NBA Draft presented by Marathon on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
You're listening to the 2020 NBA Draft on ESPN Radio and on the ESPN app.
We are awaiting the 23rd pick in round 1. Mark Kestisher, LaFonso Ellis, Doris Burke, PJ Carlesimo, Kevin Winter, the 2020 NBA Draft. A virtual draft this year. Adam Silver, the commissioner, not too far, a few studios down over on the television side, handling things. All the players, at least those who will be interviewed tonight, who are in their homes or in other places. I'm looking up on the board, folks, and I see R.J. Hampton. I see Leandro Balmaro and Theo Maledon. Those are the last 3 right now that are waiting in the green room. But Largely, this has gone pretty much according to schedule. We had a couple of players go a little lower than perhaps many had thought. Tyrese Halliburton, for example, going 12 to Sacramento. But as the Knicks sit on number 23, Adam Silver with the selection.
With the 23rd pick in the 2020 NBA Draft, the New York Knicks select Leandro Bolmaro from Cordoba, Argentina.
There you go, Leandro Bolmaro, the Argentine, going to the Knicks via Spain. PJ Carlesimo is playing out in Barcelona.
Yeah, I tell you what, he wasn't playing for the big team, though, so this could be a stash. I'm not saying he's not good enough to come right away, but it could be a stash because he's a young guy, really skilled. Let's accent, first of all, he's from Argentina. That means he's going to play very, very hard. He's going to play unselfishly, and he's going to play on the defensive end of the floor. Again, another guy came up to the NBA, Basketball Without Borders. He was everywhere. BWB Global, Americas. He was at the Latin American Academy down there, and the Next Gen Showcase at the Final Four. Very big. I don't think he's going to end up being a point guard. He's exceptionally skilled for a big man, sees the floor very well, loves those one-hand passes, maybe growing up with there it is right there. On cue, I'm watching TV. He throws a Manu Ginobili about 50-foot pass right there, but I love the way he plays. He's disruptive defensively. He can guard you full court. Reminds me a little bit of Andres Nocioni, who you recall played in the league. He's going to be a good one. I just don't know if it's going to be right away.
Yeah, LaFonso, I see you shaking your head there. Yes, too, hitting on a lot of points that PJ just brought out.
No, Coach is exactly right. And, Coach, where I love him, to your point, is I love the fact that at 6'7", he can pick you up 94 feet and turn you. He has a tremendously high motor, and on the offensive end, he plays with different speeds. He's an excellent passer, has nice floaters. The area of his game that he just needs to pick up, especially with regard to the NBA and spacing, he's got to be a more consistent three-point shooter. If he can do that, he's going to be a really good player in this league.
Mark Kestisher, LaFonso Ellis, PJ Carlesimo, Doris Burke, Kevin Winter, Leandro Bolmaro going number 23 to the Knicks. Reminder, Rise and Grind with Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin every weekday morning from 6 to 10 a.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio and ESPN News. The Milwaukee Bucks are on the clock. You heard the pick is in. They are going to pick for New Orleans as soon as that Drew Holiday deal is finished. I wanted to back up to 22 with Denver because, PJ, we went to break right after the pick on Zeke Naji, the 6'11 freshman from Arizona, going to the Nuggets.
Hey, Kesty, everybody talked about the Pac-12 last year had an exceptional recruiting year. Freshmen, everybody talked about all the different freshmen. He was probably the third most talked about on his own team. There was probably 8 others in the league that were talked about. He was the Rookie of the Year. He was also first-team All-Pac-12. Zeke Naji just gets it done inside. He scored. He gets fouled. He's so aggressive. He lived on the free throw line and shot 76% from the field. They talked about everybody else. He got it done, particularly on the offensive glass, made those free throws. He didn't really knock down his threes, but I think that you'll see that on the horizon. He's going to be a lot better than some of the more heralded guys.
He's used to not being heralded, PJ. He came out of high school. He wasn't highly rated, but yet he's the freshman of the year in the conference first team. The guy's a world-class pianist, very well-rounded. Sean Miller talked a ton about his fight and his fire and his competitiveness. And what Sean said is, where is he going to be 2 years from now? Because this young man's skill set is exploding.
And, DB, I love his fight. And the thing that they don't talk about is they played him up at the elbow, the high post. He showed a nice little jab step and pull up from there. He would drive to the basket, finished with either hand. So I love his ceiling.
That's Zeke Naji going 22nd to Denver. Leandro Bolmaro, we just spoke of him going to the New York Knicks at 23, but Woj is reporting that Bolmaro will end up in Minnesota as part of a trade in which the Knicks will get back the 25th and the 33rd pick. So a lot of movement here as we reach toward the bottom of round number 1. We're at number 24. Milwaukee on the clock for a pick that will end up in New Orleans. Here's Adam Silver.
With the 24th pick in the 2020 NBA Draft, the Milwaukee Bucks select R.J. Hampton from Little Elm, Texas.
Mike Schmidt's player profile.
Hampton is an absolute blur in the open court with some of the best end-to-end speed in the entire NBA. Standing 6'6" with a lean, wiry frame, he needs to improve his ability to take contact at the rim and his perimeter shooting, but in terms of speed and shot creation, he's up there in this draft.
R.J. Hampton, selected by Milwaukee, will end up in New Orleans, and Fonz like LaMelo Ball, an American kid who skipped college and, like Ball, went over to the Australian League, the NBL, and at 6'5", will end up eventually with the Pelicans.
Yes, indeed, and he'll be really rock solid for the Pelicans. He's got an explosive first step and is terrific in transition. He's at his best when he's driving and kicking to shooters. The area of his game that he needs to grow in is in most areas he's really good, but he's not elite in anything, but he's a well-rounded player.
Doris left New Zealand, or at least his team, in February. And again, he's had a long time to wait for his opportunity in the NBA. Thought it was going to come a little quicker in June. Like everybody else, had to wait a few more months. Had to wait a couple of hours here tonight, actually 2.5 hours before finding out his fate.
Well, similar situation to Cole Anthony, in that prior to him going to Australia and his season being cut short by injury, the projections for this young man were much higher. The comp, from what I understand in the NBA, is Derek White, who is a developing guard in San Antonio's system. He's got to get tougher, right? He's got to be able to finish better than he has, and toughness and physicality on the defensive end. But I'm curious to see, because they say that first step is just like, you watch him on tape, and I mean, he is by guys in a quick second.
And PJ, this is New Orleans now loading up with a couple of guards, right? They had Kyra Lewis, their pick back at 13.
Yeah, the two of the quickest guards in the whole draft they have. I'll tell you what, he's got to learn to shoot the ball better. Bad luck for both him and LaMelo, because they both go. They play in the NBL in Australia. They both get injured. RJ only played 15 games also, and I think it's one of the reasons we see now the G League team, the option that players have now that don't want to go outside the country and don't want to go to college, they can play for Brian Shaw's G League team. So RJ Hampton, it was really kind of a difficult year to evaluate him. The numbers don't jump out at you, but in truth, he only ended up playing 15 games. It was tough, so everybody knows what he's capable of doing, but he's going to have to improve with the ball, putting it in the basket.
And another Woj bomb as we talk about R.J. Hampton. He was selected by Milwaukee for New Orleans, and now Woj is reporting that the Pelicans selected Hampton for the Denver Nuggets. So R.J. Hampton will end up with Denver at number 24. Oklahoma City has the pick at 25. We told you about the Knicks-Timberwolves trade a couple of picks ago that landed New York, the 25 and the 33. So this will end up in New York. Here's the commissioner, Adam Silver.
25th pick in the 2020 NBA Draft. The Oklahoma City Thunder select Emmanuel Quickley from the University of Kentucky.
Emmanuel Quickley going at number 25. And Fonz, that wasn't a guy that necessarily folks had in the back end of round one, but a second Kentucky guard off the board now.
Yeah, Tyrese Maxey got much of the attention because of these big game shots that he made, including against Michigan State with the deep three. But Emmanuel Quickley was the most consistent offensive player on that team. The ability to shoot deep threes. He's really good catch and shoot, has a nice pull-up, can get to the rim. The areas of his game that I like to see him improve is when he gets in the gap, being able to make the right decision to put the pass on the hands of the shooter waiting out the three-point line. But I love his defensive toughness as well.
PJ, I know you like when the writers and broadcasters select players of the year, but the league's coaches select him as the SEC Player of the Year, Emmanuel Quickley.
Well, again, that's how how deep Cal's teams are. But I mean, first team All SEC and the SEC Player of the Year. So again, sometimes it's difficult. I think Doris made the point when we were talking about Kentucky before. There is so much talent. The pieces don't necessarily all fit together. Sometimes we don't get a chance to see them until they're in the league and you see what they're capable of. Emmanuel Quickley can flat out play. You don't get those votes from the coaches unless you get it done. And he was very, very consistent for the Wildcats this year.
Doris, I don't know if who said it, that this wouldn't be the last Kentucky pick after Tyrese Maxey, but the latest in Quickley.
Well, that was PJ, but it's when we were talking about the New York Knicks before, we said immediate need at the starting point guard position. And obviously, the emphasis as Tom Thibodeau takes over is you've got to develop these players. What do you have in R.J. Barrett? You know what you have in Mitchell Robinson on the defensive end of the floor. He's working very hard to develop his skills, but this was one immediate need for the New York Knicks. And so it'll be very interesting to see what this young man brings. But he has some time, and they're going to be about development.
And, PJ, we mentioned, Tom Thibodeau is the new head coach in New York, but this is the first draft for the new president of their basketball operations, Leon Rose, in New York, as Emmanuel Quickley will end up at Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, well, I think they're going to like him. I think he fits well in New York. Everybody doesn't enjoy playing there. Scotty Perry knows that very, very well, their GM. And, again, there is a different brain trust there. Not an accident. You got Kenny Payne also is with the team. He was in Kentucky, so he knows this player very, very well. So this is not an accident. This isn't somebody they just settled on. This is somebody that they, had focused on and made it happen. There's a lot of connections there coming home to roost.
PJ, as I look at Jay Billis's best available list, the man who is sitting right now best available coming into the draft was Jaden McDaniels from Washington. We're sitting at 26 here for Boston, so 5 more picks to go in the first round, and so far Jaden McDaniels has not been selected.
Well, Jaden McDaniels had a difficult year to be selected from. He was very inconsistent. I think he needs to grow up. If he grows up, the talent is unbelievable. He's got incredible talent. Can do anything with the ball, can put it on the floor, can score it, but he was too inconsistent. I mean, he led the Pac-12 in the wrong things. I think he was first or second in turnovers. He led them in fouls. He certainly led them in technical fouls. And UW had a horrendous year, and that's with him and Isaiah Stewart. They overachieved Hop's first 2 years, and this year, now in fairness, losing Quade Green, might as well tie Kentucky into this again, but the Kentucky transfer, when Quade got injured, it really killed them. But Jaden McDaniels was part of the reason that they struggled. If he gets his act together, there's no limit to what he can accomplish.
Well, Emmanuel Quickley going at number 25, selected by Oklahoma City, and after a trade will end up with the Knicks. The Celtics, their second of 3 first-round picks on the clock at number 26. Let's go a little earlier in the draft. Back to number 7, the Detroit Pistons selected Killian Hayes, who was born in the U.S., grew up in France, and is now headed to the Motor City. Killian, welcome. Mark Castasher, PJ Carlesimo, Doris Burke, and LaFonso Ellis with you. Killian, congratulations on heading to the Pistons. I know you wanted to come over earlier in your high school career to play over here in the U.S., hoping to play some collegiate basketball, but you opted to stay in France before coming over. How excited are you now to get this opportunity to play in the NBA?
I mean, I knew I made the right choice, make the right choices of staying in Europe and starting playing professional at an early age. And right now, I see that all the work and the sacrifices that I made paid off. I mean, I got drafted by Detroit. I'm really excited about it. I'm super happy. My whole family's super happy. So it's a really exciting journey ahead of me.
Hey, Killian, it's PJ Carlesimo. Tell me how playing in the Bundesliga this year, playing in Germany, getting all the opportunity you got at a very high level in Europe, how that helped you for this transition to the NBA.
I mean, leaving Cholet, I was looking for a team where I can lead the team and play my game, play my style of basketball. And honestly, they did a great job. Coach Shaka, I'm so thankful for Coach Shaka for everything he did for me. He was really tough on me, but I had room for mistake, and I was able to learn a lot from the game. And honestly, really helped me out with everything.
Killian, LaFonso Ellis here. You're great with the basketball, getting in the lane, making plays, good pick-and-roll player. What's the next step you need to take on the offensive end for you to be successful in the NBA, in your opinion?
I mean, that's what I've been working on the last 8 months. I had the ball most of the time in my hands, but now, like in the league, a lot of teams like to play with multiple ball handlers on the court. So really playing off the ball Also, my shot creating was good. I got it even better now, more consistent. I shoot the three at a higher rate, and everything that's related to my right hand. A lot of people had doubts on my right hand. Now, like if you come see me work out, or even like in the future game, you'll see me throw bullet passes in my right hand, go right with no problem. Like the right hand's not an issue anymore.
Killian, it's Doris Burke. I'm curious if there's a player in the NBA that you've admired or that you've modeled your game after, or just anybody in the NBA who you've really stood out in terms of like, he's somebody I compare to.
I mean, I modeled my game after a lot of lefties. Manu Ginobili, one of them, D'Angelo Russell, Dorian Dragic, Mike Conley, James Harden, like them guys. I always watch them play, see how they can adjust to either people forcing them right, or like a guy like James Harden, they put a completely new defense on him. So just watching them like work, and I just love seeing lefties plays, and I learned a lot from it.
That's awesome. Killian, congratulations. Headed to the Pistons, number 7. Thanks for a few minutes tonight. That's Killian Hayes going 7th to Detroit. One of a couple of French point guards. Still waiting on Theo Maledon, who is still awaiting. And right now the 26th pick belongs to the Boston Celtics. Here's the commissioner, Adam Silver.
26th pick in the 2020 NBA Draft. The Boston Celtics select Peyton Pritchard from the University of Oregon.
So Peyton Pritchard finds his way into the first round. Late in the first round, a senior also, PJ, 6'2" guard, and a guy I know you've seen a lot over the years.
I've seen him a lot. I've got the TV set on here. I'm watching his father, Terry, who was, played at University of Oklahoma. His mother was a gymnast at Oklahoma. I'm so happy because here's somebody who stayed 4 years, led the Pac-12 in assists. He's a deep three-point shooter. He knows how to play basketball. I hope he stays there. It's always dangerous when you project somebody with a particular team, but you got a guy who grew up in Oregon, Danny Ainge, Brad Stevens, who certainly knows the value of college experience, the job that Peyton did playing for Dana Altman. I think he's an excellent choice for Boston. Fonz talked before about needing some backup behind Kemba. He's ready to play.
And Fonz, all he does is play. Started every game of the last 3 seasons and has been so clutch for Dana Altman as well.
Yeah, when I think of the Celtics, especially their backcourt, I think of toughness and grit. Peyton Pritchard will fit right in there. He's a big-time playmaker with deep range, makes all the right reads coming off of ball screens, and just when you need somebody to take over the game at the end of the game, nobody better in college basketball to put it in their hands than Peyton Pritchard. He's an outstanding player and a terrific pick for the Celtics.
Doris, I don't know if everybody stays with Boston with all the young talent, but you've got the long-range shooter in Aaron Nesmith and another sniper in Peyton Pritchard coming to Boston.
Just steps across half court and Pritchard's in range. I love his competitive spirit and the fact that, as Fonz said, like end of game, he wanted the ball. Like he doesn't duck it, he doesn't shy away. The one question, can he guard elite point guards in the league? But in terms of competitive spirit, toughness, all of it, range shooting, love this young man.
So Peyton Pritchard is going to Boston. So is Aaron Nesmith, who joins us now here on our NBA draft coverage on ESPN Radio. Aaron, it's Mark Kestisher, Doris Burke, LaFonso Ellis, and PJ Carlesimo. I know you were disappointed the way your season ended due to injury, but certainly you showed a lot over those 14 games. How excited are you now headed to a very competitive team like the Celtics at 14?
Man, it's a dream come true. I couldn't be any happier, going to a championship caliber team like the Boston Celtics, getting to learn from all the guys that they already have, the veterans, the high-quality players, man. I couldn't be in a better situation.
Hey, Aaron, it's PJ Carlesimo. I know you had to watch them a bunch. They were on TV so much, particularly through the playoffs. The way you play is so well-suited for Brad's game, and I think you got to be looking forward to playing with those forwards. You talk about a couple of forwards that are going to be the focus of the attention of the other team. You continue to shoot the ball the way you did at Vanderbilt, you're going to fit in very well in Boston.
Yes, sir. That's the plan. Being able to be on the wing and be a floor spacer for those guys and make life easier for them. that is just going to help our team as a whole going forward.
Aaron, I know you're recovering. This is LaFonso Ellis. I know you're recovering from the foot injury, but what was outside of that, what was the focus of your training as you were getting ready for the NBA draft?
Working on my ball handling, being able to make reads, coming off the three-point line, just being able to become a better overall basketball player, getting to the rim and making those plays and making my teammates better. And on the defensive side of the ball, working on my lateral quickness and continue to make sure I can guard at all positions and, be a strong asset to my team on that side of the floor as well.
Aaron, you just touched on the aspect of the game that I'm curious about because obviously you shoot it at such a high clip, but, Jalen and Jason, they're both elite wing defenders. Just tell me your strengths, if you would, on that side.
My strength would be my strength. I'm very strong. I'm long. I'm athletic. I think defense to me is a very will and effort-oriented thing. So I have the will. I have the desire. I want to be great defense. A stigma that's stuck with shooters is that, you kind of got to hide them on defense, and that's something that I never want to be associated with my name, and I'll make sure that it doesn't. So, going forward, that's going to be my main focus day one, as long as it's stringing that ball in the three-point line and knocking it down.
Congratulations.
Absolutely. Played for great man Jerry Stackhouse out at Vandy. Thank you very much, Aaron. Aaron
Thank
Nesmith.
you so much. You guys have a blessed one.
You got it. You too. Going to the Boston Celtics, Peyton Pritchard, the latest Celtic pick at number 26. And 27 is next, the Utah Jazz. And we'll have those picks coming for you as we round up round number 1. This is the NBA Draft presented by Merrill on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
Before we rejoin Kesty, Doris, and LaFonso Ellis, PJ Carlesimo, the point guard from Washington, has just been selected by the Lakers. It is Jaden McDaniels, but he's going to wind up with the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Well, he's a very talented player, Kev. We talked about it before, about 2 picks ago. An awful lot of ability. 6'9", can put it on the floor, can score going to the basket. He just didn't always apply himself. He was a local player from Federal Way, Washington, stayed and played at the University of Washington, and he was just too up and down. Too many turnovers, too many fouls, too many nickel fouls. When he was good, he was very, very good. But he was also very, very inconsistent. And, again, the ceiling incredibly high, but you got to take a deep breath and you got to measure the good and the bad after the game.
Jaden McDaniels, who will end up in Minnesota. And Doris, as we look at what Minnesota's done here tonight, Anthony Edwards, of course, went number 1. They took Leandro Balmaro. We'll see what his readiness is moving forward. McDaniels now, and also Ricky Rubio. We had mentioned about an hour ago there was a trade between Oklahoma City and Minnesota. So Gerson Rosas is working to revamp this roster and add to a couple of big pieces he has moving forward.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see, Anthony Edwards in particular, the number 1 overall selection. It seemed to be the consensus. And obviously it's a huge positional fit alongside of D'Angelo Russell and Karl Anthony Towns. Like, he will have his opportunities to score it, but I think the one thing he's got to do is he's got to be an elite defensive guy because, again, D'Angelo and Cat, I don't want to say Cat's definitively a minus defender to this point in his career. D'Angelo has shown at times a willingness, but I think as much as we talk about Anthony Edwards as a 1 selection because of great scorer, I think he's got to be elite on the defensive end.
And Fonz, we heard Kevin Winter mention, we didn't have a chance to talk about Udoka Azubuike, the 7-footer out of Kansas, going to the Utah Jazz at number 27. He's had a couple of big injuries during his college career, but always showed a lot of promise under Bill Self at Kansas.
Yeah, he's the movable object in college basketball through the course of his career. You let him get the basketball with 2 feet in the paint, you can absolutely forget about it. Finishes with the dunks, gets on the offensive glass, runs the floor reasonably well. I thought the next step for him he took from his junior from last year to this year was he got himself in terrific shape. He's not a good free throw shooter. He's not going to be able to knock down a 3 ball for you. But when you're talking about hustle, effort, physicality, especially on the offensive offensive and defensive glass. He gives you that consistently night in and night out, and he is a terrific lob threat as well.
And PJ, going to Utah, obviously Rudy Gobert is the man in the middle there, but gives them a little more depth at that end for what they're doing under Quinn Snyder.
Well, they're used to a player who primarily is a defensive player. But I'll tell you what, Fonz just talked about it. Udoka can rebound and can block shots. Yes, you can lob to him, but, I mean, he's a force inside. And, rim protection. And, again, go back to what we talked about really at the top of the broadcast. Everybody says you need guys, spacers, and people out shooting threes. Anthony Davis did that. JaVale McGee does not do that. Dwight Howard does not do that. And they're playing for the world champions right now. So there's still room for a big man. Quinn Snyder obviously likes the rim protection that Rudy Gobert gives him. He's going to get a little bit more of that from Udoka.
Well, let's stay out west because the Sacramento Kings earlier in this first round selected Tyrese Halliburton, the sophomore guard out of Iowa State, and he joins us right now here on ESPN Radio. Tyrese, it's Mark Kestisher, Doris Burke, PJ Carlissimo, and LaFonso Ellis. First off, congratulations, headed to Sacramento. I know after the first 3 picks, a lot of the guys weren't sure where they were going to end up. What are your thoughts initially on heading to the Sacramento Kings? Well, I think we lost Tyrese Halliburton, unfortunately. That's a guy, LaFonso, and I hope we get him back and have a chance to talk to him. He's been so impressive in any game I ever did against Iowa State, and by all accounts, the Sacramento Kings got themselves one heck of a player.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, another guy who is terrific in transition with the basketball, terrific pick-and-roll player, makes all the reads coming off of the screen, can step back, hit it from behind the three-point line, and a guy who's a willing defender. And I love having him play out in Sacramento and able to get out in transition with De'Aaron Fox. I think he can play alongside De'Aaron, or when De'Aaron gets tired, he can take over the point guard responsibilities and run the team quite efficiently.
Well, if we do get Tyrese Halliburton back, we will bring him to you. Meanwhile, we're waiting on the final 2 picks here of round 1 of this 2-round 60-pick draft. The Toronto Raptors sitting at number 29 after a 53-win season, and they have made their selection. We will get it to you when the commissioner brings it out, and then the Celtics are slotted to pick number 30. Interesting off-season, Doris, for the Toronto Raptors after the championship 2 years ago and a disappointing 7-game second-round series loss to Boston. We'll wait on Fred VanVleet to see where he ends up, but this is a team that is very young, and in fact, we'll get your thoughts on the Raptors in a moment because here is Adam Silver with the 29th selection.
With the 29th pick in the 2020 NBA Draft, the Toronto Raptors select Malachi Flynn from San Diego State University.
Mike Schmidt's player profile.
Flynn has been one of the draft's biggest risers after a strong season at San Diego State, leading the Aztecs to a 29-2 record and winning Mountain West Player of the Year and Defensive Player of the Year. He's outstanding in pick and roll, has a high basketball IQ, can really shoot it from range, and is a hard-nosed defender.
And Doris, if you stay up late like we do to watch some college hoops, San Diego State and the Mountain West Conference is always fun, and Malachi Flynn was one of those guys.
Well, just a perfect fit if Fred VanVleet is going to step aside, right? I mean, this young man starts at Washington State. They're not really winning, but his ability to be a disruptive defender, to think the game on the defensive end, because when you think about Nick Nurse, he is constantly asking you to dial and read and make that next progression. And I just want you to think about some of the late picks from this organization, whether it's OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam, 2 guys picked 23rd and 27th, and yet finding their way not only into rosters but into big-time rotation spots. So I like this pick from a positional fit if Fred leaves, and then also just in terms of their ability to identify talent at this position.
Bonds, what did you see from Malachi Flynn during the regular season?
tremendous range, elite level pick and roll player. And where I was most impressed is on the defensive end, because when you're a guy who can score it the way that he can, you tend to relax a bit on the defensive end and take plays off. Not Malachi Flynn. He's not only good on the ball defending, but he's terrific at anticipating pass lanes, picking it off and getting out in transition. Now, he's not much of a driver. You don't see him drive too often, but he's an elite level shooter, both off the bounce and on catch and shoot.
Yeah, part of the reason, PJ, why he ended up Player of the Year and Defensive Player of the Year on a team that was 30-2.
Don't be reading my notes, Kessie. That's what I was going to say. Player of the Year and
don't show them to me.
And defensive player. I'll tell you what. He did it all. He shoots it, but 5 assists a game. He had just under 2 steals. I watched him a bunch playing for Ernie Kent at Washington State. His first 2 years, he goes to San Diego State. We talked in the pregame show. I wanted to see Dayton. I wanted to see Obi in the NCAA, and I wanted to see Malachi Flynn for the Mountain West. I wanted to see the A-10 and the Mountain West have a chance, because these were 2 exceptional teams primarily because of these 2 exceptional players. Really happy for Malachi. He's a local guy. Played at Bellarmine Prep in Tacoma. When he left Washington State, I wasn't sure it was a good move. Turned out to be a very good move for Malachi Flynn.
Malachi Flynn heading 29th to the Toronto Raptors, one of the class in the East last year, fell short of making the conference finals. They lost to the Boston Celtics in a 7-game second-round series. The Celtics sitting on the 30th pick, but they will not keep this number 30 pick. Adrian Wojnarowski is reporting that Boston is trading the 30 to Memphis. Memphis did not have a pick in the first round because of a trade they made with Boston 5 years ago in the Jeff Green trade. So the Memphis Grizzlies, Doris, they were so much fun to watch last year as they made their way down to the bubble. It was a little bit disappointing for them. They had injury. They had the Rookie of the Year in Ja Morant as they look forward to the new season coming up next month.
A lot of young talent. So Ja Morant leads the charge, but obviously Jaren Jackson at the power forward position, a guy who can pick and pop. I love the toughness of Dylan Brooks. And what a rookie season for Brandon Clark. Just a young team, but what Taylor Jenkins did with them all year was incredible. But obviously still trying to build a roster. You need a backup 2 guard. You got to add some veterans. Obviously that's not going to be here. But remember, second youngest roster last year, weighted by playing time.
Well, the Boston Celtics on the clock for Memphis. You hear the pick is in, and here is the commissioner, Adam Silver.
With the 30th pick in the 2020 NBA Draft, the Boston Celtics select Desmond Bane from Texas Christian University.
Mike Schmidt's player profile.
Having shot over 43% from 3 at TCU, Desmond Bane is a 3-and-D style wing and one of the best shooters in this draft. With a linebacker body at 6'6", 215 pounds, he has the strength to body up with wings and also the motor to chase around guards.
Lightly recruited, Jamie Dixon took him in at TCU, 16 points a game last year, and Desmond Bane is your 30th and final selection in round number 1 by the Celtics. Deal, though, is expected to send him to the Memphis Grizzlies. 1 round down, second round to come. Dallas Mavericks on the clock to open up round number 2. That's next. You're listening to the NBA Draft presented by Marathon on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. First round in the books. Before we get the second round teed up, let's pause 10 seconds for station identification. You're listening to the NBA Draft on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. Dallas Mavericks on the clock to open up round number 2 at the 31st pick overall in the NBA Draft. But our first round instant analysis is brought to you by Merrill Guided Investing. Visit merrilledge.com/investing goals. Merrill Lynch, Pierce, Fenner, and Smith Incorporated, both a registered broker, dealer, and investment advisor, member SIPC. Let's go around the horn here before we start round number 2, guys. And just your thoughts early on here on this round 1. Doris, I'll pick you here. What are your first thoughts on this round number 1, the first 30 picks?
You know, PJ had been talking to us about the number of first-year GMs and the importance of making excellent selections. Well, Troy Weaver, who has got to build a Detroit roster out of the gates with two really good picks for me, Killian Hayes and Sadiq Bey, just a tremendous job out of the gates. You've got to value every selection. Congratulations to Troy.
PJ?
International. I thought it would be a night when the numbers were really going to be down. It didn't seem there was as much talk about the international players. I don't know how you count LaMelo Ball and R.J. Hampton because they're Americans who played internationally, but Killian Hayes, Denny Avdija, Alexei Pokusevski, Josh Green, I counted him, Leandro Bolmaro, then you got Udoka Azubuike and Precious Achiuwa. So they had a lot of players either born or played internationally. I didn't expect that. I think they dominated, in a sense, the first round.
And LaFonso, look, everything kind of went according to plan. There were a couple guys that snuck into the first round that maybe not many expected late in that first round.
Yeah, there are a couple of those. I think what I wanted to see is, as I watch the Boston Celtics, they have a young enough nucleus that they have a chance to win the East. But I thought they needed to address two areas. One, I thought they needed to address the 5. They didn't adjust that spot. That's still a little soft for them. But I thought they did a terrific job in bringing in Aaron Nesmith and Peyton Pritchard to try to protect an aging Kemba Walker. So I like what they did there, and you're exactly right. There were there's actually still a person on the board who I thought would be a first rounder but didn't make it, and that was Jamias Ramsey out of Texas Tech. His ability to be able to knock down the 3 and be a 3-and-D guy, I thought that would be valuable. Didn't happen for him here in the first half.
Yep, Jamias Ramsey still waiting. Trey Jones out of Duke. This is the first time I'm told that Duke hasn't had a first-round pick since 2010, so there was 9 consecutive drafts with a Dookie in the first round, but not to be this year. Desmond Bane out of TCU was the last pick of the first round by the Celtics for the Memphis Grizzlies, according to reports. And again, it'll be the Mavericks to lead off our second round. 2 minutes now in between selections. Mark Tatum, the deputy commissioner, will be making the announcements from here through number 60 and the second round. And that means that Adam Silver's night is done, but we are told he is en route, and we will be able to speak to the commissioner for a few minutes coming up in just a few minutes. We'll have Dallas, we'll have Charlotte, and then Minnesota will be the first 3 selections here in the second round. The Dallas Mavericks, who with their first-round selection earlier in this draft took Josh Green out of Arizona. So the Mavericks sitting on the clock at number 1 in round number 2, and we will be able to speak to the Commissioner Adam Silver in just a few minutes. I know he is arriving, and we will wait for him to get settled in. Mark Kestisher, Doris Burke, PJ Carlissimo, LaFonso Ellis with us here. The NBA Draft on ESPN Radio, for the first time, a virtual draft, as we broadcast here from the ESPN Radio studios in Bristol. PJ Carlissimo and LaFonso Ellis are out in the western part of the U.S., Doris Burke and myself here in the eastern part of the U.S., and we now have the Commissioner Adam Silver so gracious to join us for a few minutes. And as I kind of introduce all of us scattered around the country and so many of the players tonight from their homes and other places around the country, how difficult and impressive was it to pull off this draft in this style tonight, Adam?
Can you guys hear me okay?
I can hear you now. Thank you very much.
Great to be here. Thank you to ESPN. You guys got it figured out a way to make this work. Virtually, it was quite impressive. And having watched a few drafts from people's homes, glad I wasn't in mine, and had the benefit of the professionalism of this organization. And I also was really impressed with the quality of the video that was coming out of the draftees' homes. I mean, a little bit of it had some delays, but it was pretty good. It was a good show.
You know, it strikes me before I send it on to our panel is that you had the benefit of time for this virtual draft, but conversely, you did not have that same benefit when the pandemic first hit and had to make a right turn and make some very tough decisions.
No question. As it's well known now, back on March 11th, we made a decision to shut down. I mean, maybe we were a little bit ahead of some others, but only by days, of course. And I it's a longer story, but I think it's largely because we have a big presence in China, and we had been shut down in January, our 3 offices in China. So not to say we therefore knew it was going to come to the United States from China, but it had already impacted hundreds of our coworkers there. So, we had started to test players in early March, and of course, and then Rudy Gobert tested positive, and there we were, so we shut down.
Adam, I don't know how you felt when it was all said and done and the Lakers won the championship, but it felt miraculous to me. I use that word not lightly, what you were able to pull off in Orlando. Of what are you most proud as you transition from March through October to get that championship complete? What makes you most proud?
First of all, I had the same reaction you did, Doris. I know we spoke about it at the time. I was in the miracle sort of category too. I mean, given all that could have gone wrong every step of the way. And what I was most proud of is the way the NBA family came together to make that work. Without the support of all 30 teams, including the 8 who weren't able to continue playing, and that was a big decision at the time. And then the teams who were still outside the playoffs agreeing to that format, and then the players, of course, agreeing for knowing when they went in, those who would ultimately be competing for a championship would be spending roughly 100 days on that campus. Michelle Roberts, the Players Association, everyone involved came together and made tremendous sacrifices. And also, everyone was willing to compromise. I mean, something, honestly, you don't always see these days in our society. People have different interests, different positions, but they sat down, virtually together, hundreds of hours of Zoom calls among the teams and Players Association, and we worked our way through a protocol. And every step of the way, we all had a common goal. Didn't mean there were issues that weren't contentious. They were. And it doesn't mean that there wasn't some conflict along the way, but we found a way to make it work, and I'm particularly proud of that.
Well, we're talking with NBA Commissioner Adam Silver, and on a personal note, Adam, I've got to thank you. I'm one of the old fogies that you protected so well down in Orlando. There was so much concern before it started, and just did an unbelievable job, so thank you for that. Going forward, you obviously have watched Major League Baseball and what's going on in the NFL. Talk about a quick turnaround, and again, your biggest concern as you look to this new season that's going to start December 22nd.
PJ, thank you also for being down there. Appreciate that. And, so many of you, dedicated so many months of your lives to being part of that, call it an experiment. And as difficult as that was, as Doris and I were saying, I mean, it literally felt like it took a miracle. Never did I know we'd be trying something in many ways that's even harder. And because, as you remember, when we went into the bubble, understandably, a lot of people said it won't work. It wasn't, you guys know, it wasn't truly a sealed bubble. There were a lot of workers going in and out on the campus. There were lots of reasons why we almost didn't play, social justice included, others who weren't sure whether it was appropriate, but it happened. And now, so here we are, many months later. We've learned a lot about the virus itself. Our doctors and scientists, as the rest of the world has, in terms of better understanding of how it's transmitted and how you can prevent it from being transmitted. And the reason we had 0 cases among players and coaches and team staff down there was not because we did a lot of testing. Obviously, that just demonstrated that nobody had it. It was from the same basic stuff that public health officials have been talking about essentially since day one. I mean, they weren't talking about masks initially, but then there was a decision that people should wear masks, or people wore masks other, of course, than when they were playing, and remain physically distant when they could, and lots of hand washing, etc. So we're fairly confident that going into the season that we can keep people safe in our facilities. The issue, of course, and this is what the other leagues have dealt with, that if players are going home at night, and that's the plan, there's a potential to be infected. In some cases, you can have the most responsible person, but if their schools are open and their children are going, especially if it's small children and they can't keep masks on all day, and a child should get infected, generally children do very well with this virus, but they still spread it. And then you also have people just living their lives. And we know that where we've had cases of NBA players getting the virus, essentially it's been those who, in the many months before we went into the bubble and then when we came out of the bubble. So, unless somebody's going to truly live in a sort of sheltered home protocol, not just themselves, but everyone around them, people are unfortunately going to get this virus, or there's a chance they're going to get it. So, again, watching what baseball did, watching what the NFL is going through, I think we have to be prepared for the fact that if we're doing daily testing, which we will be, and in fact, there may be scenarios where we're testing more than once a day, it's likely along the way someone could test positive. And then the protocols we had in place in Orlando will be similar to what we'll do now, which is, of course, to immediately isolate that player from the team staff and his teammates, do the contact tracing, potentially retest others. And as we're learning from the other leagues, it would then seem you can responsibly continue, even if you have one player infected, with the kind of rapid testing we're able to do. It doesn't mean that you would then be subject to multi-week quarantines. The only thing, the big caveat here is, of course, that because there's not one consistent national policy in addressing the virus, I'm not saying there should be, because what's happening in Oregon could be completely different than what's happening in Florida. And so, therefore, we may run into situations where local municipalities or their state rules that don't allow us to continue playing. And so, with every sort of my opening statement tonight at the draft was there's enormous uncertainty around this virus, and including how we will proceed this season. So we're doing something we've never done before, which was we're planning to issue the schedule in parts. So we're going to have an initial schedule, as you said, PJ's season starts December 22nd. We're going to issue a schedule through early March, which will then give us a chance to reset, and maybe we'll learn. Maybe it'll turn out that we had to postpone some games. But I've said this before. One thing we all learned in dealing with this virus is that we have to stay incredibly humble, and we learn from other industries, we learn from other sports, and we'll just see as we go, including ultimately and follow the advice we get from public health officials.
Adam, this is LaFonso Ellis. Thank you for joining us. Forgive me, I couldn't hear much of what you're saying, so if I ask a question that's redundant, forgive me, please. Just looking at it on the screen, it's a beautiful presentation, and I know logistically it must have been a nightmare, but what was the one thing that kept you up at night as you thought about bringing all of this together to have the draft tonight?
I think, the draft, honestly, is more straightforward because the draftees were able to remain at home, and it was a production issue. And again, ESPN did a fantastic job. That issue didn't keep me as much as the daily testing in the bubble, honestly, where in the middle of the night we'd get test results. So that literally kept me up. I think here, yesterday we had a virtual session with the draftees and their families, Michelle Roberts and I and others, something that, LaFonso, as you know, that when you're coming into the league, we do in person. There's a luncheon and there's a reception and there's all kinds of fun events and there's celebrations afterwards. I feel for these young men and their families. And I think that and the older I get, as bad as I feel for the draft picks, they're so young, I actually feel more sympathy for their parents.
Right.
Having raised their children, and this is a family moment. It's not just about the player, and it's great to see the shots of from people's homes of everybody celebrating. But one of the things I said to the families yesterday, I said, I owe you guys a big party, and once we get through this, and we will. I'm thinking maybe around the Summer League in Las Vegas, we can have some sort of big kind of celebration, and get them dressed up and bring them back and sort of do a reenactment of the draft, and just allow people to have the celebration, not just the players but their families too, and because it is one of the great days in all of their lives, not just the players. And you can just see the parents are beaming, and the brothers and sisters and the uncles and aunts and the guardians and the people who helped them along the way, the coaches. So it didn't keep me up at night. I just feel bad.
Well, I look forward to that. I know it's not going to be easy to navigate the season. I know the league and you at leadership will do the best job possible. And as we let you go here, I just did want to amplify your right, because PJ and I, maybe Doris too, I remember getting our test results at about 3:45 a.m. and we're texting each other, and we're all up texting each other. Hey, we're still negative, and we're.
It was the inconclusive that kept me up, but.
Thank you so much for coming in.
We're joining that party that you throw, I can tell you that.
Everyone's invited.
Thanks, Adam.
Great to be with all of you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
It's Adam Silver, the commissioner of the NBA, so gracious to give us a few minutes after being here on the campus at ESPN all day long and announcing the first round. And Mark Tatum, his deputy commissioner, is now doing the selections for the second round. We will get you caught up on the first 5 or 6 picks on the first round in just a moment. But first, we will talk some Indiana Pacers basketball, because the new head coach of the Pacers, Nate Bjorkgren, is joining us. Spent the last 2 years on Nick Nurse's staff in Toronto. Nate, congratulations a few weeks late here on picking up the Pacers job. Obviously, this is a different offseason like any other. Kind of take us behind the scenes on now how quickly you have to ramp things up here taking over Indiana.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks for having me on the show. Yeah, we're getting it moving. You know, the draft room is moving along tonight as the draft is going, as everybody knows, and we have a lot of our Pacers players are in the gym for individual workouts. So I've been all over the United States visiting the guys in the other cities, and like I said, we have a number of them here. So it's a great group. I'm looking forward to coaching this team.
Nate, it's Doris. Congratulations, first and foremost. I'm just curious, you know, you've been around the game forever. There's great stories that the basketball court you played on growing up is still in your parents' driveway, which just makes me so happy. But I'm just curious, like, when you first take over an NBA team, you know, what are the first 3 to 4 things that you're saying, all right, this has to get done?
Yeah, the number one thing is reaching out and connecting with the players. You know, right? You know, when I was offered the job and accepted the job, that was the first thing on my mind, was to reach out to these guys, and they did a great job of texting me and calling me right away as well. So number one is the players, just how I can connect and how I can make them better, making them better basketball players, you know, helps our team get better. You know, and then number two, I'm also in the process of hiring a coaching staff, working very closely with our front office here and bringing in good people. There are a number, and so many great coaches out there. So, you know, we're being very detailed and thorough in our search on that. And I am. I'm looking forward to getting started here. The calendar's moving along quickly, like you said, and I like it that way. I've spent many years, you know, coaching other teams, you know, whether it was in minor leagues where I'd have to get my teams ready to go very quickly in short amounts of time. So we'll use this to our advantage.
Hey, Nate, it's PJ. Carlesimo, congratulations, because you were and are one of those very talented coaches that have paid their dues for a long time, and you've got a great opportunity. To me, from the outside, the health of 2 of your guys is maybe 2 of your biggest concerns. How's Domantas and Victor doing?
Coach, they're doing great. I've seen them both. I spent 2 days with both of them, watched them work out. And they look great, and they're excited. They're excited for this season to get going, and you know, they're just looking forward to, you know, the newness of it. It's a great job, as you know, that I'm coming into. The Pacers organization is a great place, and just you know, new coach and new ideas, new style. But they're eager, and I'm looking forward to coaching them.
Good luck.
Thanks, Coach.
Hey, Nate, LaFonso Ellis, thanks for jumping on with us. One of the things I was reading is that, and actually had the privilege of doing one of the Pacers games last year against the Milwaukee Bucks, and one thing that jumped off the screen at me was, especially in the modern NBA with the number of three-point shots that are taken, is that you guys were 29th in three-point field goals made. Will that be something that you would like to change going forward, or will it stay the way it is?
No, we'd like to change that. Each team has their, it's a good point. Each team has their strengths and areas to improve on, and different styles of coaching, different philosophies, and that is something that you're going to see. This is a team that can shoot the three. Very good shooters, willing passers. We want to get the right threes, but you'll see that ranking move upward this season.
Coach, thank you very much for a few minutes, and we look forward to seeing you down the road this first season for you in Indianapolis.
Thanks for having me on. I enjoyed it.
Nate Bjorkgren, the new head coach of the Indiana Pacers, coming over from Toronto, where he won a championship ring a couple of years ago as an assistant for Nick Nurse. Coming up next, we're 7 picks into round 2. I know we have to get you caught up. Right now on the clock are the Jazz, followed by the Pelicans and the Grizzlies. And what will the West look like next season? We'll explore that coming up next. This is the NBA Draft presented by Merrill on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
Elijah Hughes gets selected to New Orleans out of Syracuse. PJ Carlesimo, did you get all that?
I did, K-Dub. I'll tell you what, Jim Boeheim was bragging about Elijah yesterday. Told me he's better than people think he is. He really thinks he's going to be a good player. Stealing looks at TV. I was loving seeing Tony Parker, who owns the Asvel team in Villeurbanne, France, hugging his guy Theo Maledon when he was drafted, which is super. And again, the international coming through. Good job with the pronunciation, K-Dub. You got Vít. You had Vít perfect like there. Vít Krejci, another basketball without borders. The NBA has got to be really proud of their. That's the 5th player out of BWB Global in 2018 to be drafted tonight. So it's a good night for the internationals.
The voice of PJ Carlesimo. I'm Mark Kestisher with LaFonso Ellis, Doris Burke, and Kevin Winter. And let's go back to the phone lines. Back to the first round. Saddiq Bey out of Villanova went 19th overall, officially selected by Brooklyn. Saddiq will end up with the Detroit Pistons, and he joins us right now. Saddiq, this is a long way from DeMatha. You had a great growth spurt, 2 outstanding years at Villanova. How excited are you to move into this next chapter of your basketball career?
I'm excited, man. It's a blessing. I always want to play his level, man. I'm just thankful that, the team took a chance at me. I thank you for God for getting me here. So, I'm blessed.
Saddiq, it's PJ Carlesimo, old Big East guy, so really happy. Tell me how playing for Jay Wright and playing in the Big East Conference helped you to get ready for this next step.
Yeah, man, it's a tough conference every game. It's tough, man. You got to grind it out. So, playing in that conference, man, it helps you, working at the grind for every game, and it's a tough battle. So, it's a blessing. Coach Wright, he helps, emphasize hard work and fundamental habits. So I'm just excited to, get a chance and blessed to get a chance to play this next level.
Saddiq, this is Doris Burke. I'm curious because Jay has now had so many players, Mikal and Jalen. I could go on and on with the players currently there. What are the non-negotiables in that program that have made it so consistently good? What are the things that have to happen from everybody across the board to sustain that?
Yeah, it's playing hard, playing together and just playing for each other, man. Playing hard on both ends, rebounding, defending first, and then, sacrificing and, to win. That's the non-negotiables, man. And, being able to, focus and really appreciate and play for the guys who played before us, and that's just something that, we take pride in and know that somebody else before us wore this jersey, so we have to take pride in that. So.
Hey, Saddiq, this is LaFonso Ellis. Congratulations. Saddiq, I got a chance to see you your junior year on the circuit and then got a chance to watch you play your freshman year at Villanova. What was the point of emphasis for you to work on between your freshman and your sophomore year to put yourself in position to be selected in the first round of the draft this year?
Just continue to have faith and,
and continue to work on my craft. I try to do that every summer and try to be the best player I can be. So I'm not worrying about really any outside, distractions or just worrying about getting better. So that's what I just focus on and just try to improve every day.
Sadiq, congratulations. Thanks for a few minutes tonight. Enjoy the celebration and the quick turn to your first NBA season.
Man, thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
You're welcome. Sadiq Bey spent a couple of years at Villanova, selected by Brooklyn tonight at number 19, but after a three-team trade, will end up with the Detroit Pistons. We are in round 2 of the 2-round NBA draft. Mark Kestisher, LaFonso Ellis, PJ Carlesimo, Doris Burke, and Kevin Winter. And Fonz, the San Antonio Spurs at number 41. Our latest selection just went with Tre Jones out of Duke.
Tre Jones, one of the best on-ball defenders in all of college basketball. He hawks it 90, picks you up 94 feet, turns the guard, and he's terrific hands. He gets deflections, plays well in passing lanes, terrific in ball screens. The area of his game that improved was his ability to be able to knock down the three. Not as consistent as it will need to be in the NBA, but certainly a huge improvement from year 1 to year 2. This kid is an ultimate competitor, great personality. I love the fact that he was able to get drafted tonight, especially to San Antonio.
Yeah, especially to the Spurs. And Doris, Tre Jones ends up there at 41, and they got Devin Vassell earlier with their lottery pick at number 11.
Yeah, and I want to say this. I was listening to Mike Krzyzewski talk about Tre Jones as we ran up to this draft, and he said he's not a backup singer. And he said, you tell me a measurement that talks about leadership and somebody who's not afraid of the big moment. And you could tell how with the belief system Coach K had in Tre Jones. He's obviously had his fair share of NBA players, but anxious to see this young man play in the Spurs organization for sure.
And PJ, Tre Jones going to an organization very well, and one that is, look, they've acquired some young talent over the last few years. They made a great run in the bubble, and now coming up with 2 more young players down there.
Yeah, Kesty, and I'll tell you, we talked about somebody before in my ancient mind. It slips me. Tre Jones was the ACC Defensive Player of the Year and the ACC Player of the Year. That's a pretty good combo in the Atlantic Coast Conference. And I'll tell you, he did it all for this team. I think it's a steal for San Antonio at this point in the draft. And again, they're guys that they've been bringing off the bench, if that's where he ends up for Pop, have really been good. I'll tell you what, I love that. Doris talked before about DeJounte Murray, Patty still going strong. Hopefully he's going to be back there. I think it's a great fit for both for the team and for the young man.
Yeah, Tre Jones, who last year played with 3 top 10 picks, Zion Williamson, R.J. Barrett, Cam Reddish. That was 2 years ago at Duke before they all went into last year's draft. So Tre Jones going 41 to San Antonio. Coming up next, the Pelicans pick is in, and the Kings and the Bulls are back on the clock.
Elijah Hughes, drafted out of Syracuse. He went to New Orleans. Not anymore. PJ Carlesimo is going to the Utah Jazz. We are now 12 picks deep in the second round, PJ Carlesimo.
I like Elijah Hughes. I was bragging on Coach Boeheim before. Says he can shoot it better deep than he thought. Plays with a lot of confidence. He's got good size. I like him with Quinn right there. I like the Utah Jazz. It was really, they lost in that 7th game, and people kind of forgot about them. They had a very, very good year, and obviously playing shorthanded hurt them in the bubble, but they're going to be heard from in the Western Conference this year.
And LaFonso, you were talking about Jahmias Ramsey, who was still out there and available, and we just heard from Kev at 43, going to Sacramento for Jahmias Ramsey, who was the Big 12's Freshman of the Year.
Yeah, he's a guy that I thought they may have taken a little earlier, but, man, what a value they get here in the second round. This kid can flat out get buckets. Shot-making ability is what sets him apart from most that are in this draft. He can shoot the deep ball, shoots at about 42% from the 3-ball, can make him off the dribble, can get in the lane and make plays, and I think he has the ability to be a two-way defender in the league. He's got to be a little bit more disciplined on the defensive defensive end, moves his feet very well, but can go for shot fakes and get out of position. But I think Jahmi'us Ramsey, under some good coaching and in a good farm system where he can grow, will be a terrific NBA player for years to come.
And Doris, I say this every year, but the second round is always sometimes so much more interesting to me because there is value to be found. There are guys that are overlooked that turned out to be really good players in the NBA at round 2.
Well, you look at a guy like Jalen Brunson, who was critical to the success of the Dallas Mavericks. And, in fact, I thought they missed him in the playoffs. And, again, I go back to a guy who was the National College Player of the Year and didn't get picked till the second round, but was steady. Assist-to-turnover ratio for the Mavericks was perfect. You could play him at both positions. Excellent on the defensive end. So, yes, which of these names is going to pop? Like Vernon Carey, I think he's going to be a tremendous player. So there are things that play out. PJ, you were talking about Tyler Bay, so he goes to Dallas as well.
Steele.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So
yeah, no question.
Agreed.
Well, that was the kind of draft it is, though, to be honest with you. There's depth in the draft. There might not have been incredible, transcendent talent, but there's a lot of depth in this draft. So I think people are going to hit the way Doris is talking about.
Marko Simonovic goes 44 to Chicago, played in Serbia, a 6'11 center. That puts the Milwaukee Bucks on the clock, PJ. The Bucks have disappointed, at least with their exit the last couple of years. They have certainly, we thought they had made a couple of trades. The Bogdanovich deal with Sacramento, by all accounts, is off, and he's going to be a restricted free agent. But the Drew Holiday deal, certainly, and with Giannis and a potential extension that could be signed in the coming weeks before his potential free agency next year. What are your thoughts on the Bucks moving forward?
Well, first of all, I think they're going to be okay. You can't. I'm sure no one's more disappointed than Mike Budenholzer and their players, but they didn't win with mirrors. They dominated the East twice, so it wasn't like they had to break it down. I think that from the outside, it's as much convincing Giannis that they're continuing to try and improve. They're pretty good. There's a lot of teams that would like to have Milwaukee's roster and win 60 games and address the problem of going further in the playoffs. So I do think they need to help themselves. They're in the middle of we're always the day after the draft trying to figure out who ended up where. K-Dub's the only one that has an idea right now between K-Dub and Woj. But I'll tell you what, yes, it would help if they get somebody to knock it down a little bit more. I think moving Bledsoe was an interesting move for them right there. I can't believe they wanted to move George Hill, but you've got to give up talent to get talent back. I think the Bucks are going to be better.
And Fonz, to update everybody, that 45th pick that is by Orlando for Milwaukee is Jordan Nwora, a 6'7" wing out of Louisville. What's your take on Nwora, who now will end up in Milwaukee?
He's exactly what Milwaukee needs. He can flat out score. At 6'7", takes and makes a lot of threes. He's got deep range. He's a catch-and-shoot guy. He can knock threes down off the bounce. Has a terrific step-back move, even to the three-point line. I think he'll be a perfect fit. You have to get up and stay close to him because, again, he's a really good three-point shooter, catch-and-shoot. But if you run at him, he can put it on the floor and make plays as well. I thought that was a terrific pick. I'm surprised he slid down so far because of his scoring ability.
Kesty, the most important thing that Milwaukee needed to do was make a case to Giannis Antetokounmpo that they were going to improve the roster. And obviously Eric Bledsoe's struggles in the playoffs in the most critical moments played a part, I think, in his exit. But, in that package, you give up Dante DiVincenzo, who I know Coach Bud loved for what he gave them on the defensive end of the floor. But in Drew Holiday, you get that elite defensive player. If you ask players around the league who the best defensive guard in the league is, I'm telling you 9 out of 10, maybe 9.9 out of 10 are going to say Drew Holiday.
And great pickup by the Milwaukee Bucks, a trade among many that will be announced in the coming days or coming hours. Rise and Grind with Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin every weekday morning from 6 to 10 a.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio and on ESPN News. We are midway through the second and final round of this 2020 NBA Draft. 15 picks to go. The Celtics are on the clock, followed by the Warriors and the 76ers. This is the NBA Draft presented by Merrill on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
Klay Thompson, who missed all of last year with a torn ACL, felt pain in his calf area when he landed on his right leg today. The Warriors are worried it's possibly an Achilles injury, and also he's going to have an MRI tomorrow. LaFonso Ellis want to bring you in on all the news that has happened tonight.
Yeah, that's incredibly disturbing when it comes to Klay. Having been often injured during my career, you almost stop breathing for a moment. So I hope it's something that's very light for him. But I love the selection in James Wiseman. Doris hit on it earlier. He was actually my favorite player coming into this draft. I thought he would long-term, that he would be the most impactful player in this draft because of his defensive abilities, his ability to be able to run the floor, get on the offensive glass. I think in time he's going to become a pretty good three-point shooter to be able to space, and I think he'll be able to take his position off the dribble and get to the rim and then develop that next layer, which is being able to make a play once he gets to the rim. So I was really excited about Golden State taking James Wiseman as the second pick in the draft.
Yep, big selection for Wiseman, and then Kevin mentioned Nick Mannion Fonz, who also had been on the board. In fact, on Jay Billis's best available, had him late first-round potential at number 29. It sounds like a really good value pick at number 48 for Golden State.
Yeah, he's so quick and crafty with good size, high basketball IQ, can score at all three levels, can knock down the three, get in the lane and make plays. Very good catch and shoot guy as well. Good athlete, springy off both 1 and 2 feet. The only issues with him is shot selection and his consistency from three-point land. Sometimes he can kind of try to make something happen that's not there. He can take some erratic shots at times, but at this level of the second round, Nico Mannion is certainly a value pick.
And something that Kevin brought up, obviously, for folks that are in and out of the broadcast, it had been a few hours since we had tackled the story really out of Southern California where Klay Thompson of the Golden State Warriors was apparently injured today. We don't know the severity. We don't know any official details. Obviously, if you follow the folks you trust on Twitter, it doesn't sound good, and it's right lower leg, but we'll wait on that one. And Doris, to me, as important a night as this is for the league moving forward on the quick turnaround, as to borrow LaFonso's word, it is extremely disturbing, especially from what the Warriors went through this past year.
You know, and what's troubling is sort of the repetitive nature of injuries. You know, you think about DeMarcus Cousins. You fix one injury, you injure something else. And I wonder how much of a concern, you know, the quick turnaround is for the league. Obviously, we asked Adam Silver a ton of questions. And scheduling is always difficult in the NBA. But now you're adding the schedule difficulties in COVID with the travel implications, with a season that was anything but typical and ended, you know, a short time ago. And so it'll be really fascinating to watch these coaches navigate, you know, game management, rest, all the things and the buzzwords we've heard. But listen, we're sending Klay Thompson nothing but the best, because that is one heck of a competitor. I remember watching Klay Thompson in a finals game with blood dripping out of his ear because of the kind of shot he took. And he was so angry that Steve Kerr took him out of the game, like one of the best competitors, two-way guys in the league. So sending him really good thoughts.
Yeah, because, PJ, we know, and you know, you've been through it before with players that have come back from injuries that take a long time to rehab, and any kind of setback, especially at this stage of the game, is just heartbreaking.
I trust our people. I just saying the fact that it was in Southern California, I'm saying let's wait. Let them get back to the Bay Area. Let the Golden State doctors look at him, and then let's say, hey, we jumped to the wrong conclusion. It's not as bad as we thought. That's what I'm hoping for because, as Doris said, nobody deserves it to be back after what he's gone through more than Klay Thompson.
Well, the Warriors, we told you they're pick at 48. They are on the clock at 51 now. We'll update you on the picks as we go along. Let's welcome in, waiting on the line patiently, NBA writer, our pal from ESPN.com, Royce Young. Royce, it's Mark Kestisher, Doris Burke, LaFonso Ellis, and PJ Carlissimo. You were embedded with the Minnesota Timberwolves, who had the first overall pick. We'll get kind of to the whole scope of what they were able to put together, but just we didn't know what they were going to do with that pick until the draft. Kind of take us behind the scenes as they end up selecting Anthony Edwards.
Yeah, sure, Mark. You know, I did. I had the privilege of sitting in a few of their draft meetings and really kind of getting a sense of how their front office was approaching what we all know to be an unprecedented draft situation, and not only with it being remote, but dealing with virtual workouts, virtual interviews, having limited sample size for these college players, no conference tournaments, no NCAA tournament, having such an extended period of time. So, I got a real good glimpse of the Wolves' processes. And, one of the things that they really stressed to me over and over again, that as they approached this draft, and we all saw it, the clock ran down on them. They were working phones right up until the very end. They were very open to trading the pick. Anthony Edwards was kind of always their guy. They told me 10 days ago that their draft board was set. They knew who their number one guy was, and I didn't know it at the time, but it was Anthony Edwards. And one of the things is that they repeated often that they were going to take the player with the most talent, the best available. That's their approach, and it just so happened that apparently they deemed that guy to be Anthony Edwards, but he also fits their roster the best, especially compared to the other two guys that were kind of up for that conversation, LaMelo Ball and James Wiseman. They had one of the meetings I sat in, they really broke down James Wiseman, and a big part of that conversation was about how he would fit with Karl Anthony Towns. Could they play two bigs? They wanted a lot of data analysis on two big lineups in the NBA, especially the modern NBA. And, they came away raving about Wiseman's talent, but I do think that there was some concerns about their style of play and the fit there. And so while they said best available, most talented player, I think they also leaned a little bit into the fact that Anthony Edwards was the most natural fit.
Hey, Royce, it's PJ. How about the trade and what they did with the other picks? And if they're going to move them or something like that, and you don't want to say it, I understand. But just the moves they did make, both up and down, and the guys they ended up at those positions.
Yeah, sure, PJ. I one of the impressions again that the Wolves really tried to hammer home is they were obviously very excited about drafting number one, but they also felt like they had great opportunities to build their team with the other picks that they had at the time. It was 17 and 33. They did make some moves around. The Wolves are kind of wheeling and dealing, but I think that what they've tried to do is tried to kind of build a little more depth on their team. They obviously have reportedly, according to many reports, added Ricky Rubio back, kind of a homecoming for him to add some depth and a veteran presence. You saw what a job Ricky Rubio did with the Phoenix Suns locker room this past season and how he really stabilized them in a lot of different ways. I think the Timberwolves could use a dose of Ricky Rubio's professionalism. I think that would be good, especially with the young backcourt that they have. So, I think for the Timberwolves, they saw an opportunity there to try to kind of deepen their team. They're looking for size at position. They're looking for athleticism. But they're more than anything else, they came into this draft, PJ, in a unique position for a team drafting number one, that they weren't necessarily in search of a franchise guy. They've already got that guy in Karl Anthony Towns. He's only 24 years old and he's locked up long term. They've also got another all-star that's 24 in D'Angelo Russell. So they had kind of a luxury, so to speak, of looking to add kind of players the most talent, no doubt about it, like I said, but they could kind of build out the roster rather than try to just draft the guy that's going to be transformative for their franchise.
Thank you.
Hey, Royce, LaFonso Ellis. When I think of the Minnesota Timberwolves, I had the privilege of playing there one year and actually lived there. When I think of them, I think about them needing defensive improvement. Was that at all part of the process when they were evaluating who they would draft?
Yeah, it's a great point, LaVonzo. That was a huge part of the conversation. You know, I had a multiple extended talks with Ryan Saunders, and that was a big focus for him. Was talking about improving on the defensive end. They absolutely are not known to be a strong defensive team. Sure. At least they weren't last season. But, you know, and you know, some of this is difficult to judge to some degree, but, you know, specifically with a guy like Anthony Edwards, like what a frame he's got, you know, 6'5", 230, he's built like a bulldozer. And so when you talk about his potential athletically, you know, you can focus on the way that he gets to the rim, but there's a lot of excitement there about how he can guard multiple different positions. I think Tom Crean talked about it, his college coach at Georgia, about his versatility on the defensive end. You know, he was raw last season. He's a young guy. He's got a lot of room to grow there. But that is an area of strength, and I think that that's also kind of why they leaned into that pick to some degree, is because of the versatility on the defensive end a guy like Anthony Edwards has.
Royce at Doris, thank you so much for giving us a couple of minutes. You are able to get into a space that so few people are able to get into. So I'm curious, was there anything that surprised you, or, you know, just something that maybe you weren't anticipating? Whatever stands out to you about your experience getting to places that very few, you know, people would ever have an opportunity to see.
Yeah, sure, Doris. I mean, you know, obviously it was super exciting. You know, it was a thrill personally to get to kind of see a front office working in that way. The Wolves front office is a pretty new front office. It's very diverse, very young. They are taking a very progressive approach. I don't know that it necessarily surprised me because I did kind of know it going in, Doris, but they are extremely collaborative, like to kind of an uncanny degree, and in the way that they really bring a lot of different people in. Gerson Rosas, who is a young GM, and he's got experience back in Houston with Daryl Morey under his staff, has really taken a mindset to not necessarily be like the overwhelming voice in the room. He really wants to hear from everybody that he's got, whether that's the scientists on staff, the performance enhancement group, whether that's the analytics guys. But, you know, I think that, and again, I shouldn't say this being a surprise, but it was kind of overwhelming to see in person of just the amount of research done. You know, they had a guy that's pretty well known in the NBA, Ed Tapscott, who's been around a number of different teams. He was with the Wizards for a while, assistant coach at different points. And just the depth of knowledge and the research and the background that they do, Doris, is staggering. You know, Ed Tapscott is sitting there talking about Tyrese Halliburton, the guard from Iowa State, and he's going into not just interviewing Halliburton's coaches at Iowa State, but he went and interviewed coaches that game planned against Halliburton, like 5 different. He's like naming college assistant coaches at Creighton and at Oregon, and he's talking about what they did and the weaknesses that they saw. So I mean, the amount of work that goes in, and you know, fans can complain about draft picks, and that's part of the fun of the draft. But don't ever think that these people don't put in the work, because they put in the hours.
Our NBA insider, Royce Young, is brought to you by Shell V-Power Nitro Plus Premium Gasoline. We appreciate him giving us a few minutes embedded with the Minnesota Timberwolves. But, Royce, I can't let you leave without talking a little bit OKC Thunder basketball, because we know obviously your contacts there are immense. Just trying to get an idea, the game plan here for Sam Presti, obviously acquiring tons, literally tons of first-round picks over the next 5 or 6 years. By my count, they got Alexei Pokusevski, who at number 17, also Vít Krejci at number 37, so a couple of internationals, and then moments ago, Cassius Winston from Michigan State going in 53. What's kind of the short-term, long-term plan now with OKC?
Well, Mark, if you've got a first-round pick to offer, Sam Presti will be calling you any second, because that's the strategy right now. He wants every one of them. He wants all 30 picks in a draft, I think, at this point. He wants to set a record. But, you know, I think with what the Thunder are doing, you know, clearly they've kind of gone through this in stages when they originally starting with the Paul George trade, which led to the Westbrook trade. Last season was to kind of reposition the team. Then they deal Chris Paul to Phoenix, add more first-round picks. They're beginning, Mark, a process that's kind of been long overdue for the Thunder. They've sustained success over a decade, high-level success, a lot of playoff appearances deep into the postseason. But this is a team that's been overdue for a rebuild at some point, and they're starting to trend to that direction. They're going to, you know, basically go full teardown and use all these picks, a lot of them their big focus is to, for the lack of the better term, tank to some degree to try to get high-level players. That's the way that they feel like that they can build back to being a contending team in a small market like Oklahoma City. So what they've done is just basically tried to accrue as many first-rounders as they possibly can. They've really prioritized extending them out well into the future to kind of try to maximize the long-term planning there. But they're in a transition period to a rebuild. They've still got some nice players on the team too. I mean, again, if somebody out there in the NBA wants to make an offer, Sam Presti's ready to pick up his phone and talk picks because that's his focus right now.
Royce, thank you so much for the time. Great work tonight, and we enjoyed having you on. Thank you.
All right, my pleasure, guys.
It's Royce Young, NBA writer for ESPN.com. Let's pause 10 seconds for station identification. You're listening to the NBA Draft on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. With Doris Burke, LaFonso Ellis, PJ Carlissimo, Kevin Winter, I'm Mark Kestisher. 7 picks to go in the 2020 NBA Draft. The Pacers are on the clock, followed by Brooklyn. That's coming up next. You're listening to the NBA Draft presented by Marathon on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
Listening to the 2020 NBA Draft on ESPN Radio and on the ESPN app.
Mark Kestisher, LaFonso Ellis, Doris Burke, PJ Carlissimo, Kevin Winter, your 2020 NBA Draft crew here on ESPN Radio, and we have 5 more picks in this historic 2020 NBA Draft, and the latest pick was the 55th pick overall, going to the Brooklyn Nets. You heard Kevin Winter mentioning the Blue Bloods not in the lottery. Obviously Duke and Kentucky and North Carolina and Kansas did have their fair share of players taken. But how about from John A. Logan Junior College in Illinois, PJ, Jay Scrubb just went to the Brooklyn Nets at number 55, and I said off air, nobody's heard of John A. Logan, and you were right on top of it. So I pay homage to you. Tell us about John A. Logan.
Well, Jay Scrubb is Jaden Amari Scrubb. He had 2 excellent years. He was the Junior College Player of the Year. Obviously, NABC, he was a first-team All-American, almost 22 points a game, just under 7 boards, 3 assists. He shouldn't have passed it, though. He shot 75% from the free throw line, 52 from the field, and 33 from outside. Lefty, silky smooth. He's interesting. He's from Louisville, Kentucky. He was a finalist for Mr. Kentucky basketball when he was in high school, so he is a good player. He'll also be the first junior college player drafted, Kesty, by an NBA team since Donta Smith in 2004. You believe that?
See, that's
first
what happens when I go on the road with you and we have a little dinner before a game. This is the kind of prep that I get on a nightly basis. that was impressive, my friend. The NBA Draft on ESPN Radio has been presented by Marathon. No matter where your travels take you, Marathon can improve your engine performance with quality, top-tier gasoline. Marathon, fueling the American spirit. Couple other picks that K-Dub had mentioned before the break, and I thought I had screwed things up because I had mentioned to Royce Young that Cassius Winston went to Oklahoma City. I went to look at my screen again, and I saw Cassius Stanley, but didn't realize he was right after Winston. So the Cash-Eye went to Oklahoma City, Winston 53, Stanley at 54. 2 really good players, LaFonso Ellis, Winston from Michigan State, a senior, and Stanley out of Duke.
Yeah, Cassius Winston is a pick-and-roll savant. Has the ability to be able to, if you go under, he'll step right behind it and knock it down from 3 with deep range. He's really good creating, getting in the gaps, has excellent vision to find the open players, terrific pick-and-roll player. Now, he doesn't have the explosive athleticism, but when he gets in the lane, he uses his body to shield the basketball to get it up on the basket, either with his left or his right hand. An unbelievable winner. So thrilled for him that he was able to get drafted. And Cassius Stanley, one of the best raw athletes in this 2020 draft, electrifying leaper, especially in transition.
Oh, we just have a few picks remaining here in the draft. In fact, coming up next, the Toronto Raptors on the clock. How can they remain a threat in the East? We'll explore that coming up next. This is the NBA Draft presented by Merrill on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. Mark Kestisher, LaFonso Ellis, Doris Burke, PJ Carlosimo, Kevin Winter, as we take you through the NBA Draft. Just a few picks remain. The NBA Draft on ESPN Radio has been presented by Merrill Guided Investing. Visit merrilledge.com/investing goals. Merrill Lynch, Pierce, Fenner, and Smith Incorporated, both a registered broker, dealer, and investment advisor, member SIPC. Jalen Harris out of Nevada is going to the Toronto Raptors at number 59, and that leaves one pick to go, number 60, here in this 2020 NBA Draft. New Orleans will make the pick. This is one of those there's a trade involved and should end up with the Milwaukee Bucks. PJ, we kind of teased to break how Toronto stays competitive in the East. I think many of us thought that they would have the drop-off after Kawhi Leonard left and went free agent style to the Clippers. We'll wait on Fred VanVleet, who is an unrestricted free agent, but Nick Nurse and that young crew in Toronto has done a nice job staying relevant, staying young, and picking good players.
Well, Nick Nurse has done an unbelievable job, as has Masai Ujiri and Bobby Webster. They had a slew of free agents. Fred VanVleet, clearly the most important one. And, you know, frankly, what they did if Pascal Siakam, and I don't want to put it on him because he obviously had a great year, if Pascal had played better in the playoffs, I mean, they might have been back in the finals again, Kesty. They were that close. So it's not like they just need to tweak it a little bit. VanVleet is enormous. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with all the bigs. I mean, from the team that finished the year, Marc Gasol, Serge, and all them, it's going to be a different team for sure, but they only had the 2 picks. They got Malachi Flynn at 29. You got to think they're going to be making some other moves because I don't think Masai Ujiri is going to sit pat with that roster. DB, you like them where they're at now?
Well, look, remember now, Norman Powell spent an awful lot of time in the starting lineup because Kyle Lowry and Fred VanVleet both were hurt at different points of the year. Norman Powell was enormous to them. And then OG Anunoby, I thought, as a shot maker, surprised me at times in the playoffs. I mean, think about the one he hits against Boston.
Surprised Boston.
That surprised Boston. So I just, and I think Siakam, of course, they spent the entire year grooming him to be that mid-range, tough 2 shot maker, and he clearly wasn't ready. It doesn't mean they're going to give up on the guy.
No, for sure.
You take your lumps, but you're right. You got the free agents and Serge. Mark has already declared, if I'm not mistaken, that he's going to play his final year in Spain. Yep. So there's a lot of moving parts for the Raptors. We just know the job Masai Ujiri does. This is a quality organization from top to bottom. Excellent leadership.
And PJ, it's also worth to point out that they might be behind the 8 ball again.
Yeah.
That most likely, I can't imagine the Canadian government's going to allow games to take place in Toronto.
Well, even with my great sources in the Canadian government, I don't know the answer to that, Kesty. But
break some news. Come on.
With nobody in the stands, and I still call it the ACC from when I was there. It's a different bank, and I'll think of it in a
Scotiabank.
Scotiabank. That was my banker the year I spent in Toronto. They're going to miss playing at home, but I still think even playing in that building empty would be different because that's still the toughest trip in the league to go up there and have to go through customs and everything, and that's going to impact them wherever they end up playing. If it's outside the province of Ontario, that's going to be a difficult thing for them to deal with or without people in the stands.
All right, the last 4 picks of the second round and of the NBA Draft have been selected. Reggie Perry, 6'9", out of Mississippi State, going 57 to the Clippers. Paul Reed, 6'9", out of DePaul, goes 58 to Philadelphia. The Raptors, we told you, took Jalen Harris, the shooting guard out of Nevada. And with the 60th and final pick, the New Orleans Pelicans, a pick that will end up in Milwaukee, Sam Merrill, shooting guard from Utah State at 6'5". Fonz, anything stand out to you there, these last few picks here in round 2?
Yeah, the guy that slid a lot further than I thought he would was Reggie Perry from Mississippi State. He's a true forward with some guard-like tendencies. He can handle the basketball. He rebounds it really well. Explosive leaper off 1 or 2 feet. I actually thought he'd go earlier, maybe in the 30s. I was surprised to see him slide to the late 50s.
I agree.
Well, the picks are in, and they are finished. And coming up next, we're not done yet. Devon Dotson from Kansas, Miles Powell from Seton Hall, 2 names college basketball fans recognize. Well, they have gone undrafted. What did we learn tonight? That's next as we go full circle. And, of course, the 2-round, 60-pick draft concluded. We'll get our final thoughts now from Doris, LaFonso, and PJ. But we mentioned Fonz on the way out. Devon Dotson from Kansas, outstanding point guard, does not go drafted tonight. Miles Powell, we highlighted as well, from Seton Hall. Killian Tilly from Gonzaga. There's still some good talent out there as the NBA GMs. They're not done yet after 60 picks. We're talking 2-way contracts, Exhibit 10s, you name it, as some of these guys will find their way.
They're on the
NBA
phones
camp.
right now. No, seriously.
Nope, you're
They're
right.
calling guys like Miles Powell and inviting him to camp right
Absolutely.
now. Marcus Howard, those guys that they know can play, they're getting invited right now to be in camp.
Yeah, people were likely afraid of Killian Tilly because of his injury history, and then with so many really good guards that had been selected tonight, it really put downward pressure on guys like Devon Dotson, Miles Powell, Marcus Howard, because each of them have a huge deficiency. Devon Dotson, end-to-end speed, but when he gets in the cracks, he's not a good passer, so that hurt him. Miles Powell can absolutely score the rock, but he's undersized, not great laterally moving, so likely not able to keep a guard in front of him. And then Marcus Howard, just so small at 5'11", where do you play him? So I think those guys ended up being hurt by the pure number of guards that were available in this draft.
A pair of small, I'm calling them small, you're being polite, pair of small guards in the Big East almost led the country in scoring.
Yeah.
Both guys go undrafted. You talk to I don't know how many are in the league now. What's the Big East? 11 with Connecticut? 10 coaches that are really happy those 2 guys are leaving the Big East Conference.
All right, one more time around the horn here. This is the draft game flow. It's brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Drivers who save with Progressive save more than $750 on average. Call or click today and find out if Progressive can save you hundreds on your car insurance. We'll start with Doris Burke. Just your general thoughts here as we wrap up this 2-round NBA draft.
Well, I'm really glad we had Royce Young on to describe his experience with the Minnesota Timberwolves, because we were uncertain about the number 1 pick. PJ and LaFonso both went with Anthony Edwards, and it was appropriate. But it was just interesting to me because my favorite guy to have watched and seen in preparation for this was James Wiseman, who I think is going to have a long, tremendous career. And I'm glad to know they were thinking about, making that pick. He's that talented, even though that he didn't fit positionally with Minnesota. He's that good. Congratulations to Anthony Edwards. But I am really excited to see Wiseman play long-term in the NBA.
Fonz?
Yeah, I thought it was with New Orleans getting the number of picks that they ended up getting. Coach Stan Van Gundy is going to have a lot of pieces to be able to choose from, and maybe even go out and get some veterans to go with that young core, because they needed some three-point shooting to surround Zion Williamson particularly. And so I'm really excited about watching them take the next step, because the Phoenix Suns, with the moves that they've made over the last couple of days, are going to be really good.
PJ, your thoughts?
3-and-D. There's a ton of 3-and-D players, more international players than I thought. The parity in the draft means some of these guys that went late are going to be steals. There was a lot of parity. There's a lot of guys drafted very late that can play. Coach Boeheim, the only thing it proves, his birthday was Tuesday. He's just old. That's why he's had so many players. He got COVID this week.
but he did get Elijah drafted, so good for him.
He did, and I say this every year because we spoke with a number of the draft picks tonight. Once again, the NBA with a lot of really good young men coming into the league, a lot of sharp guys that we talked to tonight, so we look forward to them entering the NBA. And I hope we didn't scare Fonz and Doris off, PJ. Usually we're doing this in the Barclays Center. I hope we can do this. Well, it won't be next June. It might be late July or August, depending on when the NBA season comes to an end. But hopefully we'll have it then, and we'll certainly be hearing NBA action from all of us coming up December 22nd, opening night, once the schedules come out. Thank you so much, guys. It's been a lot of fun. Doris Burke, PJ Carlesimo, LaFonso Ellis, for Kevin Winter, I'm Mark Kestisher.